Okay. All right, I think that did it. I think we just started for real that time. Okay, I had a bit of a false start there. I thought we were going. But now I see we're actually going. So here we are. Welcome everybody to the stream. My name is Gabriel Quinn. I'm going to be doing some world building today. And yeah, this is for a dragon design project I'm doing. I'm hosting a dragon design boot camp next month. It's actually just in a few weeks, so signups are open for that now. If anyone wants to join. Again, I'm just gonna double check that the stream is running well. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're good. We're golden. We're golden. All right. Yeah. So yeah, here's a fun design where essentially I took the influence from this mountain lion here, did my own quick sketch study. Whenever I'm using reference, I like to draw it first, just like really quick, just like a quick sketch, just to get the shapes in my mind, familiarize myself with the subject matter, and then when I go to do my own design and my own thing, it's kind of already sort of like in my head, in my hands, and it's much more easy for me, and I have like a higher rate of success when I do that because I don't know, just for whatever reason. So I've got a really rough base over here for the design. I did this kind of preemptively, but we have some pretty fun influences that we're going to be using today. So I'll show you some of the stuff that we can look at, or that we're going to be looking at rather. Although I might as well just group all these, right? These are all the same thing here. So we've got some poodle dogs here that look kind of crazy that I did a really quick sketch of, and I also gathered some references of a kind of like I think this is a savanna cat or some kind of serval-y creature or something. Yeah, I love the shapes and the head shape and everything, so did some sketches of those to get those shapes down. And then I think I did one of a pretty spooky, scary monkey if I remember correctly, but I don't know which folder I dropped that in. Who knows where that is? Ah, here we go, I believe. Yeah, here we are. Did a freaky kind of monkey sketch here. So this is going to be a fun one. And what I'm going to be showing you guys today is that you can kind of take basically any influence pretty much and turn it into a pretty compelling dragon design. Because a dragon isn't really anything other than kind of a collection of motifs that we all agree are very dragon-like. That's pretty much just all that a dragon is, to be fair. So let's go back to what we were working on here. Yeah, here we go. I believe this is it. Yes. Okay, cool. Gosh, my file management really needs some work. Welcome to everyone who's joined, by the way. I haven't looked over at chat yet since I went live here, so let's take a look at chat. Awesome. We got Ryan here. We got Xander Miner. Cool. Yeah, so we've got something to work with just off the bat. We'll work on this for a little bit, and then we'll hop to some other ones, and I can show you guys my process pretty much. If you're curious about the workshop, I'll go through some of the details a little bit later in the stream. I'll do a separate post for the on the like community slide of the channel so you guys can see it in greater detail. But for now, if you're curious about the Dragon Design Workshop next month, July 11th to 20th, you can go into the description and the link is there to the Gumroad page. You can read all about it, check it out, all that good stuff. Okay, so let's get cracking here. Also, disclaimer, I tend to answer pretty much every question that is asked in the chat. So if you guys have any burning questions, I'll do my best to answer typically. So, okay, we've got a pretty good base here. I like the design. I'll show you guys my process for this really quick. So what I did was I first had a pretty deep and intense sketch here for this guy. So yeah, there we go. So I took this kind of lion reference, which I love the expression, the look. It's looking right at you. It's got so much attitude. Did a quick little sketch of it. Not quite getting as much attitude, but really liking it. And then I did this, again, quick, very loose line sketch for what this would look like, basically like as a dragon. So I took all the motifs that I liked from this piece and pushed it with a lot of kind of dragon-y shapes, motifs, design. And then I went into kind of my research folder thing where I keep a lot of cool references, and I grabbed this little crab guy here, and I decided, you know what, this is going to be the base for this design. I'm going to use this as my reference for the color, texture, all of that stuff. So then I did a pass with one layer of color where I did kind of like all the local color, figuring out pretty simple things like wanting this really cool orangey, golden, red kind of it's very like sea creature-esque, you know what I mean? Almost like a koi fish, or very crab-like, obviously, because it's kind of a crustacean-y thing. I have no idea what this is, by the way. I really just have no idea, but it looked cool, so I'm grabbing it. Looks kind of interesting. Then I did a really quick shadow pass on this guy, where essentially I can show you guys. I just painted it in all dark to begin with, and then I painted in the mask to kind of map out the highlights. So I took a kind of a blanket sort of shadow layer here, and then I removed that to kind of reveal the light. And I can do that on some other examples as well, so I can show you guys what that looks like. And then after that, I did some coloring of the lines to kind of make it feel a little bit more natural, I suppose. I do like just kind of black line and that look a lot of the time, but for this one, I wanted to do something a bit more I don't know, natural looking, I suppose. And then I just did a little bit of edits on top for the eyes, because I wanted the eyes to really pop. We may push it back a little bit as we work on it, but that's kind of what we were doing mainly. So, you know, this raises a lot of questions initially. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and flatten it, so I have a version here. Oh, I think I already had a copied version. Well, you can never have too many copied versions of a thing, I suppose. But yeah, so it raises a lot of questions in terms of how do you use a reference like a lion and get something that looks so much like a dragon? Like, what is it that makes something look like a dragon? A lot of the time, it's very specific motifs that are pretty common throughout a lot of design of dragons, all of that good stuff. So you can look at a lot of references of dragons that you've seen, and you'll see a lot of these just like little tricks and things that make things look like dragons, you know? Sometimes like what it is the mouth kind of goes farther back on the head than the eyes. That can give a very dragony feel. Sometimes kind of horns on the nose, a more protruded nose. There's so many things that kind of add to this dragony look that we know so well. And, you know, we'll go through some examples of that as well. One thing that I'm trying in terms of getting some good references and stuff is I'm adapting certain textures and looks. And all right, these are some other ones. I'm trying to figure out where I was working on that one thing. Oh yeah, here's a good one of a kind of like a puma sketch, and then adapting it into a dragon design. And again, we'll look at some of those elements too. But yeah, a lot of fun design stuff. Yeah, there it is. So I did doing some cool adaptive design, like looking at a very simple block out of like a quadrupedal, almost like ape-ish body type, and adapting that into a dragon design. Here, I can show you how it lines up. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So yeah, taking this and pushing it into a dragon design, like how do you get that sort of shape just to look like a dragon? You can take any structure and make it look like a dragon, essentially. All of these things I'm covering in this kind of like bootcamp stuff next week. But today I really honestly just wanted to paint some dragons, talk to you guys live, just visit with everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. You know, we're at a really awesome point in the year. I feel like as soon as we go from May to June, I feel like the energy in the year just kind of changes in a good way, where, you know, you're kind of like clicked into what you're doing. You're really pushing yourself in a good way. You're like finding your rhythm, figuring out what's been working, what hasn't been working, and you can really push yourself in a good way, which I like. I really like the second half of the year always. I mean, I like the first half too. Usually for me, the first half of the year is like making a lot of promises to myself that I'm testing out, you know, seeing what sticks or what actually works. Like, you know, what we want and what we need are oftentimes very different. So it's cool to try and get what you want and realize it's not what you need. So I feel like that's the first half of the year for me usually. So I'm really happy to be in June. I feel like I'm in a really great rhythm and flow in my life, and I'm feeling good. And I hope you guys are feeling good too. So we've got a great question here, which is, wait, that masking on the shadow pass is so smart. I've been trying to find a non-destructive way to block in my light source. Thanks for sharing that. Oh, dude, it's a game changer. It's a very professional workflow too. Like a lot of professionals use this workflow where you have your basic shadow pass layer and you just use a mask to paint it on. Here you can see like I've kind of painted it on where essentially you select the mask and with white, I think it adds back the mask, and if you use black, it removes the mask. So I typically use like a soft like round brush for this, or a hard round with like opacity, and I just kind of like layer in those shadows. What's so great about this workflow is that not only can you continue to add and remove the light, but what you can do is you can go back to the base layer and you can change the temperature of the light. Like for instance, we're using a multiply today. If I used blue, it adds this really cool blue effect to the shadow, which is pretty interesting. So we can think about adding that in a couple areas. That's really nice. So you can go ahead and edit those things to your heart's content and kind of make it into what you want, which is really cool. And also what I like to do is, go a step further and kind of select out areas where this is receiving like a lot of warm light. You know what I mean? In these areas, it's receiving a lot of warm light, but maybe under this area, there really wouldn't be that much light or something. So then from here, we can, cool down the light. We can use like a soft brush here and cool down the light under the face. And that actually gives a pretty convincing, like color temperature map where, yeah, there wouldn't be a lot of warm light because that's the area where it's like you really can't get to those places. Maybe even as we fade down to the bottom here, there's a little bit of a cooler light source because it's, as we're moving down the image. But then up here, we'd probably have some pretty bright, warm lights, all that good stuff. Another thing you can do, which is pretty cool with this kind of multiply layer thing, is like you've already mapped where the highlights and shadows are, and then you can mess with the temperature of those shadows and the hue of those shadows. You can do it with other effects too, like here we have multiply, but you can do color burn. I love linear burn a lot. I think linear burn looks really good. Like look at that. Even just that by itself looks really striking and strong. But for this one, again, we're going for a bit more of a softer touch initially. We're more concerned with shape and temperature right now, and we'll like push that contrast like later on in the piece for something like this. But yeah, I think it's a great non-destructive way to work. There's a lot of great techniques like that for you when you're like working at your paintings and stuff like that. And then as you're finishing, you really want to just be simplifying things down, promoting clarity, all of that stuff. Also, what's up, AU? Welcome to the chat. Welcome. Happy to have you here, dude. Another thing we're going to do later on is we're going to review some dragon designs from my patrons because I hosted a pretty fun, I think, challenge where I gave them options to whether or not they wanted to design like a dragon rider or like a dragon brood mother, like a kind of like a maternal dragon creature, or I think there was another option there. But most people opted for the dragon rider. People really like dragon riders, so that got the most votes. So we ended up doing that, and I haven't reviewed the designs yet. So I figured a little later on stream, like I don't know, maybe in an hour or so, after we've done some of these, we can look at those designs. So stay tuned for some. It's not like a student review thing, like in the Patreon Discord, we really have like a peer mindset where we're all peers, we're all working towards the same goals. And those of us with perhaps a bit more insight oftentimes like lend some help and stuff. But in the Discord, we try not to get into like the student teacher dynamic. It's very much just like everybody's working on their skills, and like occasionally I'll offer to look at some stuff and like help out with expertise that I have, for instance. Which is a great segue. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, I've done 78 of these live streams that you can watch back and look and kind of learn from and hopefully be inspired by. And if you want to support the stream, you can absolutely go to the Patreon link in the description, sign up. It's just $3 a month, and you can join our wonderful community Discord where we get up to some cool stuff, and it's a really supportive community. And these days, oh my gosh, dude, people have been so prolific. Like I've been so impressed. It's like unreal, how prolific everyone's been on the Discord. Like people are doing so much work. It's unreal. I'm just so impressed. So yeah, anyway, little side note there. So we have the base here, and essentially what's going to take this to the next level is just going to be pretty much just rendering. Turns out rendering is just kind of the next step. So we take something like this and we push it to the next stage essentially, which is how we finish something like this. So yeah. So yeah. Let's go ahead and just render for a little bit, I suppose, and then we can hop in and do some more, which I always love. Man, I have the AC going on right now, but like being live on stream, oh, dude, it just adds so much tension to my mind. You know, like being live on YouTube is so nerve wracking sometimes, especially when like I get out of practice with it a little bit. You know, also it's so much easier to stream when you have like a really small audience because you're like, oh, hey, Joe and Dan, and you know, like the 5 people who tune in. But now it's like, what is the channel at now? Like almost 10K, I think, subscribers. So it's always a little nerve wracking now going live because of just all the people who are going to see the VOD. Man, I hate when creators I know like go meta and they like start talking about like being like a YouTuber or like doing all that stuff, and it always bothers me. I'm like, dude, just do the thing you're supposed to do. Like, don't talk about being a YouTuber or something like that, which I don't even know if I consider myself that. But I always end up doing it because you can't help but like be self-aware and like not self-critical, but very, you know, maybe self-skeptical, I guess. Oh, Snoozy J, welcome Jay. Good to see you, man. Ryan says you're killing it, Gabriel. Man, I hope you're right. Hope you're right. Yeah, I don't know how true those things, like there's a lot of like censorship things on YouTube, like people are like saying like unaliving or like, you know, that kind of stuff. I actually don't know how real that is, like how much it hurts your visibility or something. Like I actually really don't know. But I think I just I don't know. I just pretty much stick to not cursing and leave it at that, I suppose. This guy is so cool, man. I love this dragon. So if I were to imagine what this dragon sounds like, I was doing a bit with some friends yesterday on a call, and as we were talking, I gave this guy like a really bad British accent, like, oi, oi, mate, I can't believe you've come into my dragon's lair. You think you can leave here alive? You're done, mate. I've seen your face. It's over. You know, like something like that. I was like doing like a bad, like, just like a bloke voice, which I thought was so funny. But it would probably be more of a traditional dragony kind of voice. I love dragon voice acting. It's always so like guttural and awesome. A lot of growling. So much fun. Yeah, sick. So one thing I want to pay attention to with this design in particular is that, you know, I'm using this reference over here, which is really interesting. You know, there's a lot of texture information, a lot of cool information here, like with pigment and edges and all of that stuff. And I want to try and really be influenced by these references, but not let it kind of take away from the overall design. So when you're using a reference like this, it's important to have understanding of what you're looking at. Like there's pigment, but there's also translucency in the material, and I have to figure out like how translucent I want it to be, like what I want to show. Potentially, there's some pretty cool stuff we could do with the kind of translucency things. Like, for instance, there's some pretty interesting things. Like if we were to take this exact same thing and let's say we want to mess around with some translucency, like with these like center sort of like body plates. What I like about this one over here is that towards like the points and the edges, you know, you get a lot of pigment, which kind of like limits the translucency of the shell, and it kind of it shows you where maybe it's like thickest or something. So I kind of wanted to show that along some of the edges, like as it gets to the edge or curves over the shell, it gets kind of thicker, a little bit darker. So one thing we could do is we could sort of, if we really wanted to, select out some of these areas that we think would be that kind of translucency. And like if we wanted to do some kind of like trippy sort of like internal organ thing, like we can try a couple things out for that. When you're working on materials, experimentation, you really have to give yourself room for experimentation, right? Like it's just so essential to leave that room. So one thing we could try is something kind of like doing some sort of like artery or some sort of like shape running through the body. Something like this, you know, where it kind of runs down and runs up. And maybe there's like another one like running alongside or something like that, like twisting around or whatever. And it doesn't look like it's inside the body right now, but there's a few things we can do to kind of like really help it feel like that. So one of those things is in the areas that are higher in pigmentation, we do the same thing, but just a little bit lighter. Just a little bit lighter. So it's like the pigment is messing around with the original thing. But the main deal we have here is that we have like a full follow through with the shape, like it is passing through the whole thing, if that makes sense. So we can do that, have it kind of almost up here a little bit. And then we can use the pigmentation and stuff to kind of push it back in certain areas. So it's not like so visible from the outside. If we're going to do this kind of translucency, there's a lot of other stuff that we need to do as well, like rendering wise. But for now, I'm just messing around. So we're going to try pushing it back in a couple areas. But I always love this kind of look where like there's almost like a see-through feel. And going back over something with just a little bit of color oftentimes helps a lot with making it feel like it's behind something. Like behind this shell texture. It's like just enough to push it back to make it feel like it's on the inside or something. All right, we're being like semi-successful with this right now, but I like it. It's cool. Yeah, if we zoom out, it's sort of starting to have that weird look and feel a little bit. But there's a lot of stuff you have to do when you're doing like a translucent material that makes it feel translucent. Like oftentimes you have to have things be sort of darker around the edges to give that impression that like there's more material as it curves over. So because we haven't done any translucency on some of the other pieces or anything behind, you know, it's like not necessarily like as successful, let's say. But yeah, always stuff you can do to make certain things feel a bit more translucent and interesting. Oh yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch for Smaug was so good. That performance was chilling, dude. Oh my gosh. Even seeing him like roll around on the ground was like really compelling in my opinion. It was so cool. Yeah, that guy's amazing, amazing actor. My goodness. Yeah. So what kind of stuff are you guys working on lately? Currently I'm doing a bunch of stuff. I'm working on this like indie comic project that I've been working on for like a very long time, which has been really nice. I have also been doing some cards for Lorcana recently, which has been really cool. It's always a blast doing stuff for them. Like they're really a really good client, and it's cool. It's like really cool to do some work for them. So that's been like my jam recently, which has been nice. And also preparing for this workshop next month is always fun. I always love preparing for a workshop. It's always a challenge and interesting, and I get to look at my process with a closer eye and figure out like kind of how best to share that process. Which is always cool. Always a fan. Yeah. Man, I love painting these like faces, dude. These faces are always so much fun. Ryan says, currently painting a cool looking rock. I've been doing a lot of one-off drawings every day though. Nice, man. I think that's a really great way to learn. Just like do a ton of drawings. I think working on longer term projects is like always fun and cool. But I do think that like just having a high volume of work that you're doing is just such a great teacher. Like it just helps you improve so much. Oh my goodness. It's like no joke how much it helps you improve. If your goal is improving, that is. Which I always assume. I always assume people like want to get better at drawing. That's usually where I give advice from, like that place from people wanting to get better. But sometimes I have to remember like some people just are curious about art and they're not like as hardcore about it. You gotta you gotta ease up a little bit with how you say certain things, I guess. Yeah, this guy's cool. So one thing I'm practicing a lot these days is being a little less I guess perfectionistic when it comes to pushing kind of concept illustrations specifically, and letting certain things be pretty loose and just kind of using the fundamentals I have to just go like straight to paint, if that makes sense. Cool. Nab says currently working on a job application. That's so exciting. That's really cool. And exhibiting your sketches. That's so cool. Little Grim Does Art says, I'm working on adding some building design to my portfolio. Right now, I'm making a blacksmith's forge where the blacksmith designs sentient weapons. That's a sick concept. Good luck. Also, Little Grim, I saw you signed up for the dragon design workshop. Super excited to see you in there. I know you're going to do really cool stuff for it. The assignments are going to be so fun. And this is what I'm doing right now is one of the assignments for my dragon design workshop that I'm doing next month. It's going to be take an animal reference and a material reference and turn it into a dragon. So this is kind of like a quick demo to test out the process, see realistically what I can expect people to do, you know, in certain amounts of time and whatnot. So if you want to do some of these, it's what we're going to be doing, man. Jay says, haven't had much time for art lately. Finished writing my bachelor thesis. I'll be defending it next week. Good luck. Also says, but I did manage to do some small exploration sketches, design sketches for a personal project lately. Awesome. Let's go. Xander says, working on some 3D modeling and making my collectibles. That's cool. You're making your own like 3D model toy things. That's sick. Little Grim says, hee hee, me too. So excited to draw some dragons. Let's go. Ryan says, that's awesome. Good luck with everything. Dude, the support in this community, unmatched. All right. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, man. I was talking a little bit before about how I love June because the year starts to, you know, like the sun hits its zenith and it starts to come back down on the year. You know what I mean? You're at that high sun halfway point. You can kind of use a lot of the knowledge you've gained throughout the year and kind of prep for that ending phase. And man, I feel so excited for this year to start to close out and move into the next one. I feel like I'm super clear about my goals and really excited for what's coming, man. It just feels so great. So I'm sending those kinds of vibes to you guys. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah. When you're working on rendering, especially like materials like this where it's kind of like very I don't know. There's a lot of like round edges and kind of shiny materials and stuff. A lot of the time, you're just pushing kind of like light against dark, figuring out what shapes are curving into what other shapes, and sort of just making adjustments from there. That tends to be a lot of what rendering ends up being. And I remember learning that when I was, I think, like really starting to take my skills seriously. I was taking concept art seriously, like right when I started taking it seriously. Like I was really pushing myself design wise, but I was kind of staying really in the sort of like line art, flat color, line art, cell shading kind of look, and just really staying there. And the reason I was staying there wasn't necessarily because it was like what I preferred. It was mostly because I think I viewed it as a limitation that I was in. Like, oh, I can't really paint, so instead I'm going to just do this line art thing. But I remember when I started to take my skills a little seriously, and I kind of realized, like, I've got my entire life to make art. Like, I might as well, learn the skills of painting and rendering now so that I can spend my whole life with a little bit more autonomy over what I'm actually allowed to depict, rather than just limiting all my designs to this one kind of lane or this one kind of zone. So that ended up being pretty instrumental when I was just like a few years ago, kind of leveling up my own skills. Also, what was interesting is I think that I did so much study, but I didn't necessarily let myself paint out a lot of my designs just because, again, I was like maybe afraid of ruining them or afraid of whatever. And so I would kind of just, again, stay in that place of like just more line art based stuff and not really delving too far deep into painting as much. Um, but when I started teaching, it was interesting because pretty much everyone needed help with like rendering and like values and stuff. So I found myself painting so much in like the one-on-one sessions, mentorship sessions. Like I end up doing so many paintovers and like mentorship stuff and everything for the classes. So I sort of realized how much I knew, and I knew a lot more than I thought I did. Especially because, again, I like had that sort of mental limitation of, oh, I don't really paint, I don't really do that. I mostly just stick to line art and this kind of design. And, I really like took those skills and I kind of made them really lofty in my mind. I'm like, well, true design is all about shape and rhythm and flow, and painting is kind of blah or whatever. Like I had all this like hubris and everything. And yeah, I just remember really just kind of embracing this thing of like, you know what? I'm just gonna learn, man. I'm just gonna learn. I'm gonna do the hard thing and just learn how to paint, even though it's gonna be really hard for a long time. And it was, but I'm feeling really good about a lot of the designs I've been making recently. Like, a lot of artists go through this phase of like, they post a lot of art and they kind of get some traction and people start liking their work, and then very easily you can fall into a trap of feeling very trapped. Like you feel like you can't post anymore because you have a heightened sense of what's good and you kind of know that your work could be better. It's this kind of like weird intermediate level up that happens. It's pretty universal experience, I think. And then you can very quickly just like start to not stagnate in your skills, but like stagnate in your sharing of your work and kind of go into like a skill building mode for a little too long. And that definitely happened to me for sure when I think like I hit like 10K on Instagram, and that was like a goal in my head for that year, is like I'm gonna hit 10K on Instagram. And it happened like way faster than I thought it would happen. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I started to get a little freaked out because I'm like, oh gosh, 10,000 people. What are they going to think of my post today? What are they going to think about my post tomorrow? You know, and really starting to psych myself out and everything, and not just chilling out and making the art that I like and sharing it, which is what really was connecting people to them, to my work in the first place. It was the fact that I was just sharing stuff that I thought was cool and that I liked making. But all of a sudden you get some numbers and you start thinking like, oh, well, the stuff I want to do isn't actually worthy of this number, even though it's just the same kind of person, just like more of them, you know? So yeah, I learned a lot through that experience, and switching to YouTube specifically was a really interesting experience, where I sort of didn't do that thing. Like instead of like, I guess, posting and gaining some traction and kind of going, oh no, I have to switch up my content and change what I do. Instead, I had that awareness of, oh, it's just the same kind of person, but more, you know what I mean? And those kind of people really liked what I was doing. So I'm just going to keep sharing. Just thinking out loud right now, sharing with you guys what's going on in my head these days. Yeah, the one thing for me that I really want to get better at is I want to get better at doing more pre-recorded stuff, because like that's definitely, I think, one of the most effective ways to reach people is like having a pre-recorded class that you can point to and say, oh, by the way, this is my thing, and be able to just kind of point people to that, and they can just go and look through the material. But what's so interesting for me is that I'm a very I guess like I kind of, I don't know, maybe it's like an ADHD thing, who knows, but like the kind of engagement is really important to me, like the live engagement. So it's interesting because when I sit there by myself, like I don't necessarily like think of all the concepts at once, but when I'm doing stuff live, for some reason, knowing someone else is there is a huge boon to my brain. For some reason, like my brain just makes connections in a faster, more efficient way when someone else is just there, which is why I love the live classes so much, and the workshops and the boot camps, because it's like you have those people in front of you, they're asking the questions and kind of helping you jump off into other things. And then I know people who are the exact opposite. They really like the pre-recorded stuff, and when they're live they like freeze up and don't know what to say. So it's like, it's always interesting for me where I really need to be doing more pre-recorded like educational content or just like things or whatever, and but I just find myself not able to make the time to do those things, and you know, have the the courage to like sit by myself and record, or even just like write more of a script. I feel like I really prefer to do things in the moment. I feel like it always comes more naturally in the moment. But yeah, you know, we're always discovering things about ourselves and about how we work and everything like that. So let's make sure we're maintaining the energy of the original reference. So we've got our creature here. Some things that I think are really important are these like deep squints, you know, and the folds around the nose, that kind of like grimace and snarl, you know, those wrinkles appearing. And I really tried to get those wrinkles just in the natural shape of the nose anyway. I feel like we can push it potentially even more so with parts of the face if we want to, but we'll see. Yeah, I'll test that out in a second as well. I think also like sometimes when it comes to dragons, like that sort of skill of getting the skin a little different from like the hard material of the horns, you know, that matte versus like hard edge thing, it can be a pretty interesting balance, you know. Oftentimes like it's some really subtle changes that are cool that kind of make that happen. So we'll try and figure that out here, and do some of those techniques that we know will work. Okay, cool. So Skyla says, I'm mostly doing studies to hone my fundamentals while paying close attention to intentional design. It's been fun and really rewarding to see my progress. That's awesome. That is the way, my friend. That is the way. Northern Lemon says, been doing some stylized rendering tests for personal IP and working on a client piece for a friend. I'm sketching random character concepts at the moment, though. That's the most fun thing to do. Just like character concept sketching, just like for fun, just like free flowing. It's such a good time. Nab says, if it helps, why not make pre-recording videos from live streams? Like you could just chop these videos into little video chunks. Just an idea. That's a great idea, and I think I should do that. I just have to do that, like reviewing footage. Oh man. I should hire an intern to do that. That would be a perfect intern activity. Like that would be a perfect intern activity. But I don't have a budget. I don't have an intern budget right now, but I should totally do that. That would be perfect. I don't know. If we have any volunteers, anyone who wants to watch all of my live stream content and cut it into like little concept chunks, like little 5-minute concept chunks. I did that once, I did that once with the Gale kind of angel design. I turned a live stream into a video, a little 50-minute video. I kind of cut it up. And that was pretty fun. But yeah, I think I should be doing that more though. It's a good note, Nabs. Really good note. Yeah. There's certain things I really want to do that I'm like really passionate about. Like I really want to have a really strong character design class that people can watch that's pre-recorded. That's like maybe 10 hours total of like lecture plus demo. Like I think that that's something I really want to offer the community because man, it's so hard. Character design is so hard. And just getting your bearings on like what you need to do is like some of the hardest parts, The technical stuff you can always get good at. I always find everyone makes content about the technical stuff. Like it's always the technical stuff. Like, oh, like here's how to break your thing down into shapes, and here's the base anatomy that you need to know, and here's this that you need to know, and like all of that stuff. But I find not enough of it is actually like the process of like iterating and figuring out what you want to do. A lot of it is very like experimental and stuff, but I think the kind of thought process that you can have when you're doing your character design can be so deep. It's hard to put that in a class or hard to put that in a video because it's like, very, very challenging to give that to like an intermediate and have it land. But I can do it. I think I can do it. So I've been working on that. I think I have the material. Like I know the content I want to do, but a lot of it is like presentation and stuff. I'm working on a lot of graphs and PDFs right now. But mostly, man, the client stuff has been taking like all my time and some personal work as well. So that's kind of sort of been taking precedent, but we'll find time to do more pre-recorded class stuff in the future. But yeah, this one, the dragon design bootcamp, is one that I am like so passionate about and excited about because there are like dragons are the ultimate fundamentals check. Like if you don't know your fundamentals, you're gonna hit a that's on your dragon design. So it's like if you can do a really good dragon, it means all of your fundamentals are really tight. So that's like going to be the basis for the class. A lot of like fundamentals checks and stuff. Like even something like this, like a lot of this, you need your values to be strong and correct. Like our value control is really good here. Our use of like darks is really clear and strong. A couple areas where we maybe want to push it even maybe potentially close to black, like maybe a deep kind of violet color. Get that really deep contrast. So our use of value is really, really strong, and we're able to kind of get those nice forms looking correct, which is always what we want typically. The other thing we want to start to do with something like this is, let's say we want to define this as sort of a potentially shiny material. One thing that I love is symmetry. I think symmetry is like an underrated cool thing. I think a lot of people want to be super like dynamic and intense, and that's always fun. You can do that, but sometimes the power of symmetry is just so cool. So I like to employ symmetry in a few ways. Like a lot of the times I like to use symmetrical like lighting design in a way. So for instance, like for something like this, what I can do is go into, let's see, I don't know, maybe like hard light or something. It doesn't, this one doesn't really matter because we're going to be closer to like a light kind of sort of white color. But one thing I love doing is kind of going in and mapping out some lights. This is a little bit different to the shadow one that we did before, because this one, like putting sort of, I guess, specular highlights or kind of material highlights is a very particular thing. So we want to make sure we're placing them well. But we can actually do that. So let's let's place our lights in kind of more of a big shape. So let's say we have it kind of coming around the face here. We can do maybe smaller potentially. Or like around the eyes, around the eyes. Then maybe on the edge. Coming down the edge here. Then maybe just along the edge of this. Maybe right along the edge of this. So we have like the base of where the shadows are going to go. And what we can, or where the highlights are going to go. And what we can do is we can take a hard edge kind of eraser and come in and just like kind of crisp up where those lines are and like map them to the edge or map them to where we want them to be. Oof. Yeah. I love doing this. And what you're basically saying is that this material is a hard material and it's possibly pretty shiny because it's able to reflect the light source in this way. So it's got some kind of gloss to it. And we can push and pull this to where it feels right. It's going to be kind of dancing it across the horns and whatnot here. Yeah, showing that third value essentially. A lot of the time with designs, the third value you place, or the third kind of distinct value, tells you about the material. So you sort of have your knowledge of where or what value certain elements are when they're in shadow, what value certain elements are when they're highlighted, and then you can do the same, or then you can kind of say like, but it's able to reflect these glinting highlights because it is a shiny material. If it was a matte material, these lines would be, or these shapes for the highlights would be a little bit more diffused, I think. This kind of stuff though, this kind of lighting stuff and everything like used to really kind of, I think, bore me a little bit when I was younger. Like I used to really kind of not like some of this more kind of technical stuff. Like I kind of thought it was sort of like I should just know it in my head instead of needing to learn it and like understand it. Like kind of being resentful of the fact that I had to actually sit down and like practice this in order for it to look good. That always sort of bothered me when I was younger. Um, but yeah, now I find it so interesting. Ryan says, just notice the blue lips under the skin. I think that's such a strong yet subtle feature. Yeah, man, the putting colors next to each other that kind of tell you more about the texture and material is so nice. And the gums being blue, it draws your eye to the mouth. You don't have to worry about the eyes because the eyes are so high contrast, like in black and white. The eyes just read so quickly, even from way back here, that having that hue difference in the gums is a really cool aspect. Underrated. Especially when you have such a vibrant design like this, it's nice to add just a little pop of color, you know? When you're doing like a design and you want it to be just kind of pretty naturally appealing, you can kind of think of the ratio to start with as like 70-30 or 80-20. Usually 80-20 is like more common, I think, where you have the kind of the base color range, which in this case would be this red and orange look. Like that's very much the base color range of this piece. So we want 80% of the design to be that. And then we want maybe 20% to kind of be this sort of blue contrasting complementary color that really works well with the red and the more specifically the orange. You know, the blue really works with the orange. So primary colors that we know and love always go together. Like red and yellow and blue kind of always look good together. It's hard for them to look unappealing. Usually it's because you're bending them in a direction that's very different from like the original kind of base color. So when you're putting blues and reds and yellows together, it's just always going to look good. When you do that, a lot of the time it's also kind of smart and a good idea to focus in and maybe do one secondary color. So in this case, it's kind of this orange tone that's coming in. But a lot of people do the primary colors and then like green, or the primary colors and then like a purple. But sometimes it's nice to add like a secondary color that kind of works well with the two primary colors. But recently I've been really liking, you know, the look of two primary colors and one secondary color that like complements. Like that's been my jam. Like red, yellow, and green looks so good, or like blue, yellow, and purple looks so good, or blue, red, and green looks really good. Like it's a nice color pairing. But I think people get so caught up in the whole complementary colors thing that they're always like, oh, you know, red and green look so good, or specifically like blue and orange. People are so, bro, they go crazy for blue and orange. But the primary colors, man, you can't sleep on the primary colors. They're so powerful, and narratively they're so powerful. Like they're like some of the most compelling things, you know, the primary colors. They're so powerful graphically and all that stuff. And there's a lot of discussion right now, specifically in the world of print, around like, oh, CMYK is actually the true primary colors and the true this and the true that. And it's like, sure, man, sure. Like, I don't know. Sure. Okay, cool. I'll take that to the bank, Buster. But yeah, those primary colors just look so good together. So then we have kind of our base, right? So, and if we turn this off and on, you can see how this looks good, but this is telling us about the material, that gloss. So something like this, I'll typically just double it up, make it more prominent, and the doubled one, I'll reduce with a soft brush, so like a soft eraser. So like I'll kind of go down and erase it as it kind of goes down to the bottom here, and same with here, I'll kind of erase it down. But towards the top and areas of interest, I'll leave it somewhat bright, you know, especially on the top and everything. And then as a last step, when you're adding in some very final touches and stuff, you can go pretty hard with some of these highlights. Like for instance, we can kind of go along the edge and actually push certain things to white. So really push some of these highlighted areas to white. And again, adds a lot of cool texture feel. That's oftentimes what makes something look finished, is this this rendering technique, amidst many other things. Like so many other things makes things look finished, but this is one thing, adding in that very specific indications of material. And what's cool about stuff like this is that you can essentially, when the audience looks at this, they'll kind of look at this level of finish and sort of apply it to the rest of the piece. So even if you've only rendered out like some of a design or some of an area, you can not get away with, but you can sort of leave a lot of it looser, and the audience will assume it is, the rest is kind of that clean, if that makes sense, which is an important tool when you're doing specifically kind of illustration for concept stuff, because with concept stuff, you just oftentimes can't really afford to render the whole damn thing. You got to render the important stuff that the modeler needs and leave a lot of the other stuff. Cool. Yeah. One thing I love doing is adding just a smidge of bloom at the end. Like you can just kind of go around certain areas and just kind of cling, 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 cling. We didn't really render a lot of the areas that we needed to render for this piece, but I think we want to do some other design stuff. So we're gonna keep this pretty simple. I think we're gonna leave this as it is here. So that as well, man, look how finished that looks now, just with that little bit of bloom around the affected areas of light. Just like, again, little tricks, little things where you can just really push something to a strong finish, which is always fun. You don't want to be too on the nose. You got to be subtle with it, you know? All right, let's do some more designs. So we have this one, which I think is really fun. We have this kind of shrimpy guy, and we've got this cool tiger or lion creature, and we've been doing it pretty. I think we did a pretty good job, kind of transposing these two things together in a good way. And if we were to keep working on this, we would just kind of continue to render essentially. So I think we can move on to the next one. Let's see how far we got. I mean, we didn't do too much, right? It was already pretty good. Like, yeah, it was already kind of in a good spot. Like, this is kind of serviceable and good, but we just kind of pushed some things into a little bit more of a kind of a clean area and added a bit of lighting and stuff to kind of give it a finished look. But let's go ahead and work on some other cool referenced pieces here that we're looking at. So yeah, the ones that we want to do, I think, today are definitely, dude, these dogs are so interesting. These are so cool. And then we can, maybe this guy too. This one's really strong. Cats are a great reference for dragons. Cats and dogs too, but cats are really great. Okay, tell you what, guys, I have to quickly change some settings on my fan really quick, so give me like 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay. Grab my headphones here. Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think for this one, we're going to use a similar process to design the dragon here. But again, like we want to do a lot of learning, right? So let's identify some things about this reference that are already sort of very dragon-like. You know, we'll make note of a few motifs, and we'll be able to create something pretty compelling from that. So let's take a look at what we already have here. So from these sketches, we have the classic kind of almost like predator eyes, you know, this kind of look where it's like looking at you and it's got that kind of looking at you like your dinner kind of thing. And also this really nice kind of almost heart-shaped face, which is oftentimes very dragon-like. So we already have a good structure for the head. We have some ears here. Ears like this is not really common in dragon design. I mean, we can do it and make it look like a dragon, which is pretty cool. But it's not necessarily typical. So that'll be kind of up for examination. It's another cool thing to try and design some horns based off of these. That would also be a cool thing too. The other thing is mouth structure. So again, we have a great mouth structure where, you know, the I guess like tongue of the creature is very much front and center, great shapes inside the mouth. And then the teeth are kind of coming out in this great way, overlapping, and we get this really great dimensional mouth here. And again, we get that tightness around the eyes that works really well. These big eyes. Again, these big kind of predator eyes. More of these kind of segmented face shapes. Nose coming forward. Kind of the whatever this is called. I guess the mouth of the maw of the creature kind of coming forward. And lastly, what I love is this silhouette, where this is already a very dragon-like silhouette, where we have something that's looking very intently at you. Again, this kind of heart-shaped face here, with these nice head shape here, with the nose very prominently, the eyes kind of coming over. So proportionally, it's already pretty dragon-like. And again, this is like just things that we already know from, you know, a lot of popular culture and everything. So let's do some sketches and go from there. So we have the elements that we really like in mind, and we can just kind of mess around and start sketching something, I guess. I'm going to use this kind of toothy HB brush that I like a lot. This is like a modified Kyle brush. If you guys know like the Kyle brushes and stuff, which I think a lot of his brushes are great as like bases. I kind of make my own brushes from those brushes a lot of the time, which works really well. So yeah, let's first figure out the design of this dragon. Bugsy says, is that an ocelot I'm looking at? Yeah, I think so. Like an ocelot or like some kind of like savanna cat or something. Yeah, it's like a serval, right? Yeah, exactly. It's cool. It's got those long proportions. Oh, Brandon N asks, how are the citizens of Fishworld these days? Oh, dude, we've got some really fun Fishworld stuff, actually. Oh, do I have it easily so I can easily pull it up? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Do I have some Fishworld stuff to show? I don't think I have anything I can show now. But I've got some, yeah, but the Fishworld project is remains to be a really fun stop for me whenever I'm like feeling some like creative block or anything like that. Like I can always return to Fishworld, you know? The last thing I was working on for Fishworld, or not the last thing, but something I was working on a while ago, like a long time ago, was this environment here, which was pretty fun. I might have looked at it briefly on stream once or twice, but it was like the start of an environment idea, thinking about the kind of very dramatic mood lighting that would be in Fishworld and the kind of like deco architecture and stuff. So again, like this is like the first, very, very first glimmerings of a design. But yeah, this is some cool Fishworld stuff. For those of you guys who don't know, Fishworld is a long-term project I've been working on for my own portfolio, and it's just a fun thing. Oh yeah, we're just doing a cool guy here in the foreground. Yeah, so we pushed it to a certain level, but we didn't really get too far with it, I don't think. Man, did a lot of work for this. Easy to forget. Yeah, here's the initial sketch, which I think is still pretty strong. But yeah, that's some cool stuff. These were the patterns I used to kind of manipulate the floor, test out the floor, all that good stuff. So yeah, still figuring this one out, but we'll see. That's the Fishworld update for you. Little preview while we're doing some dragon stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we want to keep this stream to about 2 hours, I think. So I'll stream for probably another hour, but I might go long. Sometimes I go long. You guys know me. We like to hang out. Also, I'm here to answer any questions. If anyone has any questions, any design questions or anything like that. I mean, I've answered a lot of questions in the past. So like, you know, many people probably have their questions answered. But yeah, I typically answer just all questions, if that makes sense. So this creature has a pretty short face, which is not like uncommon for dragons. We can definitely do that. So let's try and keep the short-ish face. Maybe not as short, but let's try to keep the short-ish face. So we're going to keep it pretty loose on the first pass here. And again, the anatomy notes that we're kind of taking from the nose is we're basing it a lot on what we've seen before with like certain lizards or birds or things like that. Like the references people use for dragons are very diverse. So we have to we can accommodate a lot of diversity with design. Cool. So what I like about this design a lot is that we have a nice diamond shape in the middle of the head, which I think is pretty strong. It's a pretty big macro shape, you know, something we can use and kind of work off of, because the rest of the head is kind of a proxy for that shape too. So we've got like a shape within a shape kind of vibe. So we want to use that a lot for our kind of main silhouette and focus. So oftentimes with dragons, you want to figure out what the kind of like fractal shape is. So for instance, here, the fractal shape is kind of a diamond, where everything sort of that pushes off from this is an accentuation of that kind of diamond shape. You know, even the body still has that sort of overall diamond shape, if that makes sense. Another thing with dragons is oftentimes we want their necks to be a little bit long, because again, we're kind of modeling them off of birds and lizards, where the neck can oftentimes feel pretty long. Brandon says that's awesome. Oh, regarding the fish world stuff? Yeah, man, it's pretty cool. We're pushing it, man. We're pushing it. So I think a design like this needs horns. And again, we like our diamond shape. So I think what we can do is off of this line here, we can imagine where those horns would be. So I think we can have them jutting out from this section, and we can imagine them to be quite an elegant design, I think. So we can have like a twisted horn design where we have some nice appealing overlapping shapes. So when it comes to horns, there's no right or wrong way. One way I like to think about horns are shapes that are kind of like cutting into other shapes, if that makes sense. So for instance, we have like an underside here, which is a really nice kind of sickle shape, and then another sickle shape kind of coming in here, and then another one cutting in from down here. So a lot of concave convex. I think you can get a lot of really nice, really nice designs from that. Another thing with dragons is, much like lizards, we like accentuating the space around the eyes, the kind of sort of dead space here. That's pretty common among reptiles, is like these nice dark spaces around the eyes. And one thing that oftentimes tells you that something is a dragon is how big the mouth is. I mean, we could do this and it still looks like a dragon. You know what I mean? But it looks like more of a human-ish dragon. Like oftentimes sentient dragons, their mouths don't go past the back of their eye. But if they're a like dragon, oftentimes their mouths go back behind their eyes. It's a weird thing, but I think for some reason, it's kind of just how it is, I guess. So let's see. What I want to do here is I want to map these shapes in. So I like these shapes that are cutting in towards the eye, let's say. We can have them coming in towards the iris, like the center of the eye, and then being, again, like cut off somehow by like another shape. So we can have these kind of springing over. So we have a nice framing for our eyes here. Yeah, a lot of shape, a lot of patterns. Dragon design, especially with more kind of textured dragons with like scales, like a lot of it is about pattern, you know? Big pattern, small pattern, just like any other design. So we have those. We can also have some more horns coming in along the edge here. This is looking pretty good. I like this design a lot, actually, so far. I like these big, chunky spikes. I think they look so good. So I like that shape a lot, but we want to save it for when the body actually goes kind of more portrait, I guess. We gotta just undo it, unfortunately. So let's map where the spine would be on the back of the head. So it would start in the center, obviously, as the head turns, but it would very quickly transition to the edge. So about here is where we'd start seeing the spikes. Something around here, right? So now we get to the kind of annoying part of dragons where, you know, the other one was just a head, so you don't have to do much beyond the head. But because this one is more of a full body sketch, if that makes sense, we unfortunately have to include the most dynamic and powerful thing about dragons, which is that dragons can fly, they've got wings. So the wings give so many people so much trouble because dragon wings are really hard. You have to somehow make, usually, bat wings look like they are on a reptile, which is a hard thing to do, you know? A lot of pterodactyl reference people use as well. So we can also look at that. But that's also pretty much just a weird kind of bat-like wing, I suppose. Yeah, pterodactyl wings are oftentimes like harder to reference because they don't have that much articulation, and the flight design for pterodactyls is like very specific. Like this is like what they look like. Harder to do this for a dragon. You can do it, but it has to be more of like a wyverny kind of dragon, I think, to make it look good. So instead, what we end up needing to do is something closer to. This is a great little graphic here. A bat wing, where you have essentially an actual arm, like it's an arm, it is, and you have to map the fingers and stuff around to this shape. So bat wings are the closest, I guess, like proxy that we use for dragon wings. So we have to use a lot of bat reference to figure out what those wings look like a lot of the time, especially when bats are in like a resting pose. If you look at most drawings of dragons, they're usually always in flight or the wings are always out. And that's because like the wings don't look that dynamic when they're not out. You know, it's actually hard to do more of like a neutral pose, you know, because it just doesn't feel right. It feels kind of weird. But we're going to give it a crack. So we're going to look at a couple images of bats here and we're going to try and understand and figure out how to make this thing look a bit more neutral, I suppose. So what I like about this one is that it's partially open, but not quite completely open, right? And another one that we want to look at here is where they're more like completely kind of folded and sort of closed. Or closer. Like this. They're going, so cute. Yeah, so their wings kind of fold back over like that, and they look kind of maybe a little bit droopy or something. But the main thing is that you've got these kind of hooks and things in the forearm, which a lot of people include on their dragons, so we can do that too. So with that same spirit, we can think about where those kind of arms would be coming off of. Usually it's around this point on the back, where for dragons, like, because essentially what you have to do is you have to convince the audience that, by the way, on the rib cage, there's like a second shoulder blade, a second appendage here that's like an arm. So you're kind of doing a four-armed creature, pretty much, that is coming off the body, and it has similar anatomy to like an armpit and all of that stuff. And, you know, the arm would be coming up here, if that makes sense. Coming forward, let's say, or maybe it's going down more and coming up. Something like this. And then we can have some very gestural lines kind of coming out, potentially coming down. Because remember, those extra tendrils are essentially like extra fingers, right? So that's what wings oftentimes end up looking like, almost just a second arm in a way. but a bit higher up on the body. And you always want to make them feel secondary. So the way you make them feel secondary is you do the actual arms coming down. Here, probably streamline these shapes here. Man, a little off topic, but I finally broke the seal and started playing Hades 2. I had 100% at Hades 1, and I love that game so much. And I started playing Hades 2. I have this thing with games where I get pretty darn invested, and I go pretty hard with those games. And I'm like unusually busy right now, so it was like not a good time to start playing. But sometimes I find myself in these like patterns where I'll be in a really good productive space, but then pretty easily, it's not burnout, but it's kind of like a sort of strange kind of stagnation I can sometimes feel like when I'm going so hard for so long. And I need like something to sort of like break the tension, but that's also like very mentally engaging and all of that stuff. Like I think what I've learned about myself is, oh, sorry if you guys hear those sirens. Oh man, wow, that's really bad. Here, I'll just do this for now. Man, oh man, that's so loud. But yeah, something that I notice about myself is that like I need something else that's like very high intensity to do when I'm not drawing, just because I like to really keep a strong like mental rhythm or like engagement rhythm in my head. I know a lot of artists can somehow have a relationship with certain games like League of Legends, where they actually are a very prolific and productive artist, but they also play a lot of League of Legends. And I used to play League, and I found out about myself that when a game is online, that's when it becomes unhealthy for me personally, because I get really obsessed with the idea of like ranking up and getting like a high rank. Like I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and when I got into Arena, the kind of digital client for Magic, like oh man, I got pretty darn obsessed, and I had to like I climbed a mythic with like a budget deck, and it took me like months, and it was such a colossal waste of time. So I learned about myself that online games are kind of a no-no for me. So I unfortunately can't really get into stuff like Overwatch, or I can't really get into stuff like League and those kind of things. But offline stuff I'm really good at because you kind of beat the boss, and that's sort of it, you know? So I downloaded Hades 2, and in less than a week I beat all the main bosses, and now I'm doing the challenge runs where you're doing it with like the increased difficulty stuff. So I'm doing that now, which has been really fun. But the designs, oh my god, the designs for Hades, oh, it's just out of this world. The main artist for Supergiant Games, Gen Z, she's just, she's got the juice, man, in the best way possible. She's got the juice. So good. So good. I've just been gushing over those designs. Like every time I play the game, I'm like, like wow. Wow, 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 wow. So that's been really fun. One thing I'm noticing about this design, just kind of to get back on track here, is I love the pattern that the spots have, and I want to include some kind of motif, not exactly spot patterns, but some kind of pattern that will have a cool like dappled effect in a similar way. Have you gotten into the TV show Arcane at all? The visual style and quality is just incredible. Yeah, I mean, well, when I broke into the industry, it was like during Arcane time, so we all watched it. It was amazing. Arcane was amazing. Um, and then every single job I interviewed for was like, yeah, we're working on a project. It's like very like Arcane style, this and that, like inspired by Arcane. Every single thing I was interviewing for was like an Arcane like project, and that sort of made me not sick of the style, but sort of like, all right, guys, all right, listen, you know, not everything has to look like the thing that just came out. You know, not everything has to be Spider-Verse. Not everything has to be Arcane. You know, we can try some of our own stuff. We can be original. It's possible, despite popular belief. It is possible. But yeah. So I got a little not sick of it, but it's like replicate like emulating the Arcane style was like a very very popular thing for a while, which it was fun. It was. I mean, it's a beautiful style, so I'm not ever gonna complain about like doing stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. It's great and terrible. Yeah, the biggest compliment I ever got is I was working on a like layout sequence. It was like a vertical like hyper perspective layout sequence, and I was getting some feedback from it from a like layout designer for animation and stuff, and they were like, "Oh, like so you want your work to look like this? Like this is from Arcane?" And I was like, "Yo!" They thought that what I drew was from Arcane. I was like, "That's crazy. That's so cool." So that was a cool win for me. That was a victory. And it was like all freehand perspective too, so I felt like such a G, dude. I felt so good. Nab says unfortunately, styles can get quickly overused, and it's like the Chase of Arcane or Spider Verse and things that once were great turn into a Comic Sans of art styles. Yeah, it's interesting. My personal pet peeve is that a lot of styles work for a lot of like a particular story. So like the Spider Verse style works so well for the story. It just like works so well. I love it. But then when that style is applied to stories where I don't actually think it works, or it's not really as successful, I think that for me is a bit of a pet peeve. I like the new Puss in Boots. I thought was really good. I liked it a lot. I thought it was compelling, but I think that it was very like influenced by the Spider-Verse style, and I don't think that the narrative moments that were supposed to really landed for me as well as they should have for what they wanted to achieve. Like I think that there's certain elements that were pushed a little too far in the kind of Spider-Verse direction and almost kind of took away from some of those like more emotional moments. You know what I mean? It's just a personal thing, and again, it's like everyone has their own taste. And I'm not saying that the Puss in Boots was like not a good film. It was an extraordinary film, and it was really good and interesting. But some of those like Spider Verse kind of influences were a little loud in the room. You know, it's like the saxophone was too loud and you can't hear the violin, but it was like written for violin. You know, does that make sense? Hey, what's up, Hong Liang? Or James, rather. How's it going, man? Okay, cool. All right, now here's the hardest part, which is that we have a pretty decent line drawing now for this, where we can sort of start to think about like how it would be like the rest of the dragon. We can do a cool, fun like tail design too while we're here, just for fun. Hell yeah. But yeah, I think Nabs is right. It can quickly become a little too homogenous, unfortunately. Especially because like the we've never had this much like stylistic potential when it comes to animation. Like the options just weren't there, but now they're there. So there's like really amazing opportunity for amazing stories to come to life. But a lot of people just like the bets that the industry are making, they're just not good bets, I don't think. They're just not good. Um and I think that our culture is just addicted to content. Like people are just addicted to watching stuff. So everything that gets made sort of gets watched, at least by enough people to make it look like it's a successful thing. But I don't actually think that it's a that it's as successful as they think it is, you know? Ba, 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 ba. Liang says, good, finally watching your live on YouTube. Yeah, man, you caught the live one, finally. Nice. Okay, so I like this drawing here. This drawing's kind of sick. If I were to think about how this would look in terms of some of the other expressions, I think like there are certain things that would work really well. Like if I were to transpose or try to transpose, it would sort of look like this. In terms of the dragon head, you know, it would be more reptilian and pushed to more of a point. I think the teeth would be a bit more dragony teeth overall. But I think that the structure is still good in terms of the reference. Yeah. The cool thing about dragon design is the only rule to good dragon design is make it look like a dragon, which is really hard because, you know, like what does that mean? But once you get it, once it clicks for what a dragon is, you can kind of just draw anything and call it a dragon. There's some amazing examples of that online on like ArtStation and stuff of just like kind of random dragon-like things. So the only thing I would push here is maybe the tongue, since it's kind of coming out of the mouth in sort of a cool way, I guess. But yeah, that's what I would do for this sort of one, is I would sort of really push these shapes pretty hard. Or no, they would curve up, right, into the eye. Yeah, they'd curve up and then over. So this would be a bigger shape here with like more of a, yeah, there you go. It's pretty cool. Do something like that, you know. And then for this one, I don't think we'll go for that one today. So now let's do the same thing we did last time where we look for kind of a weird texture-y reference. There are a bunch of cool ones. I was talking to some friends and kind of asked them, I'm like, hey, like, can you just like give me your weird references? These are all going to be really fun dragons. So we're going to turn all of these into dragons. And yeah, if you're curious to see all of these get turned into dragons, like stay tuned, like go follow my Instagram and stuff because I'm going to be posting them. Which is going to be fun. Yeah, these are cool for sure. This one's going to be a really fun one. But yeah, so I was looking for references and stuff. I was looking at these cool like hilt designs and kind of some weapon designs. Like these are cool material references. These would take a little bit more time to figure out, so we're going to opt out of these ones specifically. There's a freaky squid one. Yeah, this one's kind of cool. We might go for something like this actually. Here's some more little creatures that I was looking at. So these could also be a good candidate for some like textural design stuff. Probably not today though, but maybe another day. Let's see. This one was a good one too. This one's going to be a fun dragon eventually. Yeah. Let's grab the gross squid looking one. So we'll use this for our reference for the dragon we just did here. Here we are. So you may be asking yourself, hey, how the heck are you going to use this as your material reference? And I'll show you, man. I'll show you. So first, we'll do a nice base layer for this dragon. So we can sort of just color pick and kind of like go, hey, you know what? Let's just grab these colors right direct from the source. But instead, we're going to think about what these colors actually are. So it has a yellowish hue. So I'm going to grab some of this kind of yellow beigeish sort of hue. And everything's very desaturated. But because everything's desaturated, they all kind of have some sort of saturation to them, if that makes sense. So we'll kind of work that stuff out. There's a lot of purpley shapes, some very desaturated purple grays. And you can put a gray down and then make it look purple with almost like no effort. You know what I mean? So we'll add in some purple to the body. I think like primarily we want that to be maybe like under the neck, is that kind of weird sort of fleshy purple look. There's also some greens in here too. Again, don't have to do much to get something to look green. You can just kind of mostly keep it a weird sort of gray. And then some really dark textures around the eyes and stuff. We also have some hard edges though, which is like the horns and stuff. So we have to figure out like this is a wet, weird creature. So we're going to sort of break from some of those textures when we actually get to the horns and stuff, which is why we want material diversity a lot of the time when we're taking from references. We want some kind of material diversity in a way, or like make up some material diversity. So, all right, it gets kind of purpley as we get to the soft, gooey bits. And let's go back to our warm tone that we like a little bit and work that in a little bit more. Kind of our warmish tone, specifically around the face. Green can be, we can do some pretty green wings, I think. The wings can be pretty dark in that way, which I think will look good. So this is how I like to put down base colors. The reason I like to do this is because sometimes when you're working on a like gray background or something and you start working just tight to the silhouette and you just kind of flat it out instantly, sometimes you can lose the overall color relationships. Like when we squint, there's some interesting color relationships here that we may not have chosen to do if we were working like really big. Like, you know how when you're doing like your shape design, you're always encouraged, like people always say like, oh, by the way, yes, you're doing these shapes and everything, but just remember to look at the big picture and like try doing big shapes first. That's how I kind of feel about colors. I like to make some big decisions first and then kind of work backwards from there, if that makes sense. So there's also a lot of splotchy colors, and I'm actually sort of a little bit at a loss in terms of like how we're gonna communicate those splotchy kind of textures. My mind instantly goes to trying to find some kind of texture brush, so I think that's what we're gonna try and do. We could try something very textured and just kind of add in a little bit of darkness here or there. We can always do it on a second layer and kind of remove some of it out after, like something kind of like this. You know, we can try something like this where we've got some. Yeah, this is kind of working here. Something kind of splotchy. Give me something splotchy. The bones are their money. Yeah. Starting to look fairly correct here. On the face, we can add some too. And we'll just like render that stuff out when we get to it in the end. So again, we're dealing with a lot of soft, round, wet kind of textures. So what we're going to do for a lot of the lighting for this one is just that. We're going to do a lot of kind of airbrushing for this one. So we sort of have the base values here. We haven't painted in kind of really any shadows, to be honest. We've kept it really basic. And so now we're going to be thinking a little bit more about color, or shadow rather, as we move around this subject here. So after this one, I'm going to review some of the patron stuff because I really want to look at it on stream. People did some really cool stuff, which I'm just so excited by. Yeah, let's check this out here. So we've got this guy here. He's pretty cool. Yeah, I like these shapes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of cut them out. So I guess I guess for the sake of posterity, we'll leave one as is, I guess. Sometimes if I'm doing like a opacity brush, like that has opacity jitter, I'll just copy the layer a few times just to make sure that everything is like 100% opacity. Because if you have like low opacity and you go to do like clipping mask stuff, like the clipping mask is bound to a like a something with like partial opacity, which doesn't always yield the color you want. And then if you ever go to put it on a background or something, you realize like, oh wait, this isn't actually what I thought it was. So what's cool about this process is that you kind of get to reveal the color silhouette in a fun, kind of exciting way, almost like you're kind of painting in a background. Like I love doing that in traditional. I love working really loose and then painting in the background. There's nothing quite like it for me. So this like has the same effect where I'm cutting the background out from what I've already put down. And it's already looking pretty clean and cool here, which is nice. David Schmidt says, any good book recommendations or Udemy to get good at coloring digitally? Gosh, I don't know anything on Udemy. I've never used Udemy. Or I haven't learned anything from books personally, like for color specifically. I think that if you want to learn color digitally, one good thing to do is color theory is too big of a term to learn all at once. It's like people are like, oh, color theory, but there are many theories about color. There's like how like complementary colors look next to each other, what is like an appealing combination of color. Color is usually inseparably connected to learning value. And so if you try to learn values and color separately, you'll have somewhat of a fragmented understanding for like a long time, and that slows a lot of people down. So what I would recommend doing is trying to learn color at the same time as learning values. And I'll show you what I mean by that. This is something I have to cover like a lot usually in mentorships, because light and value are the biggest indicators of someone being like at an intermediate level rather than a professional level. And the hard part about that is that people think that they know. So they have a lot of stuff on their portfolio that has really incorrect values and like really incorrect color, but they think it looks good because they're like, yeah, those are shadows. Yeah, those are shapes. Like this makes sense. But in reality, it's like so far beyond correct that it's borderline unusable. So learning how light and color works at the same time is really hard. But again, it just it can yield some pretty good results. But for this one, for instance, I'll give you some context of what I'm talking about. And we'll go from there. All right. For this one, sometimes I think it's just faster to just like erase along the edge with this kind of stuff. Round edges, I tend to be faster with just my hands when it comes to going along these edges. Yeah, I don't like mapping out flats. I don't like how long it takes, which is why I like doing it this way. So let's get a quick value read for this. So it's all pretty much like a neutral-ish kind of lightish gray. It's pretty darn neutral when it comes to the scale. I'll screenshot this because saturation doesn't really line up with value that much. So if I place this on top, for instance, here, we can see that you can look at what gray it is. It's pretty much just midtone gray. This whole thing is midtone gray. So the local value is pretty much universal throughout the whole thing. And on this side, it's pretty universal too. The local value is really close. There's some areas that are a little bit lighter, like some of the purples and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into those areas here that we have already, and we're just going to just a little lighten this up, just a hair, just a little bit of texture. Nothing crazy, just enough to add in that little bit of difference in those areas, particularly those areas around areas of high contrast, so the mouth and whatnot. Karegi says, yo, what up, Karegi? What up? David Schmidt says, thanks. You should consider making some courses on Udemy. It could be a good stream of passive income for you outside of YouTube. Hey, man, that sounds like a great idea. It's something I'm actively working on, like figuring out where is the best place, because everywhere you put stuff up, like people take a cut, and it makes sense. You know, they're providing a platform for you to do something, which is not a bad thing at all. However, I do think that some are better than others. So right now I've been using Gumroad for like live classes, and I'll probably be using it for some other stuff too. We'll see. You know, I'm still kind of figuring that out, if that makes sense. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm really honestly kind of shopping around right now for good services. I think sometimes the best thing to do is like just make your own website, but the barrier of that is you got to do it, and that's really hard, which is why all these things are in business. That's why like these places are in business and everything. But I feel really connected to my audience here on YouTube, and I like working directly with my audience. So a lot of the time when people take my course, like sometimes they literally just like pay me direct to my bank, which is like awesome. So that I appreciate because no one's taking like 40%, 50% of the tuition, which means I can keep costs so low. That's why all my classes, the costs are like really low for what you get. Like even for instance, actually, you know what? Let's check it out for a second. Yeah, let's look. So I'm just gonna quickly switch over really quick. Yeah. All right, this should work, I believe. Switch this over. Yeah, cool. So let's just quickly go through because I like it's a great time since you brought up Udemy and everything. I'm doing a 9-day live kind of like dragon design boot camp. So it's going to be 9 consecutive days of lectures and assignments. So this is like really intense. This is a really intense boot camp. Like I have to stress that. Like this is an intense, high workload, high information density thing. So it's going to take place over 9 days. Um, Essentially, like there's a blurb here that dragons have been and always will be one of the most dynamic and powerful narrative symbols in myth and fantasy. The dragons were the first thing I started drawing when I was a kid and remain to be an all-time favorite of mine. It's true. This is like my main thing. The main thing that I want to focus on with this bootcamp, though, is that the technical and theoretical challenge of designing, sketching, and painting dragons remains a large barrier to beginners and advanced artists. So again, like earlier I was talking about how drawing dragons is sort of a fundamentals check, because if you don't know how light works or form works or perspective, or you don't know how to understand anatomy or these kinds of things, you're going to have a hard time. So this is going to train you up on all of those fundamentals. So you're going to be learning how to draw dragons, but you're also going to be getting the most powerful transferable skills possible for like concept art for this kind of stuff. So we're going to be running through a really tight schedule. The first lecture is going to be Friday, the 11th of this coming month of July, and the first lecture is going to be "What are dragons and why do we care?" which is strictly going to be a theory lecture covering the most important and essential elements of what makes a dragon, how far you can push the idea of what a dragon is, and how powerful the classic image of a dragon is. All of that fun stuff, the narrative implication, all that good stuff. The next 2 days are going to be extended 4-hour workshops, so like really long workshops on dragon anatomy, structure, and shape design. So this stuff again is like really important, and some of the stuff I showed you a little bit earlier is related to this, but we're going to be going really in depth. On the next day, we're going to be doing the same extended 4-hour workshop, but this time it's going to be on design appeal, narrative, and style. So immediately departing from some of the hard technical skills and focusing all on the theory of what looks good and applying that to dragon design specifically. Then the following Monday is going to be another lecture on composition, how to make things look huge. So talking a lot about atmospheric perspective and framing. Just a lot about composition, though, because again, dragons are really at the mercy of the composition you put them in. So you get to learn composition by using dragons, which again, learning these concepts with a specific thing in mind is the best way to learn, in my opinion. And some notes on designing with light. So even some stuff we've covered today is related to this. Then on Tuesday, the next day is going to be on day 5, iterating on your design, experimenting, and how to work backwards effectively. So figuring out what kind of result you want and knowing what to grab to get started and knowing how to actually start something, knowing where you're trying to get to in the end. So again, really important stuff. Then we're going to be doing a review session. So everyone's going to review from the assignment. So every day there's going to be assignments basically of like what you have to do. And then on this day, on Wednesday, there's going to be a big review session where everyone puts their work up for a review. I'm going to take a look and go through everything specifically. Then the next day is going to be, on day 7 is going to be understanding rendering, designing with material in mind, and how to make things look finished. So some of the stuff we've even covered today, like this is basically the assignment for that, is, take a example of something and a material reference and how to make it look polished. But we'll actually go into the fundamentals of like light, material, all of that stuff, and the technical stuff of how to actually make things look like the things you want them to look like. And then we're going to be doing a wrap-up session on Friday. So everyone's going to finish their main designs, which you will have been working on throughout the whole thing. And we're going to have a big Q&A session again, just like Wednesday, but a big Q&A session. And then on Saturday, Sunday, the following days is going to be an all-day design jam. So starting at 11 a.m. EDT, so where I am in New York, you're starting on my time, 11 a.m., and you're all going to be working on the same IP all day for 2 days. So it's like applying everything you've learned in a couple high intensity days of designing. So it's going to be super fun. The lectures are going to be 2.5 hours long. They'll typically be from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. They'll all be recorded and you'll be able to review them the same day so that you won't be able to fall behind if you can't make the live lecture. And then the whole thing is going to take place in a really dynamic and exciting community Discord. So it's going to be separate from my Patreon Discord, but when the bootcamp is over, everyone who takes the class is going to get access to like the main community Discord. So everyone's going to hop in and you'll join the community there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, definitely check out the additional info stuff if you're curious. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me about it if you want. So for pricing, the price right now is $249.99. So you're essentially paying around $25 a day. Oh, that's 9 days, so not quite, like 27, 28 or something like that bucks a day for a full lecture, reviews, a whole set of assignments. So I think it's very competitively priced. And again, it's because I'm doing it direct with you guys. Like I'm not going through a school. I'm not going through Brainstorm or anything. They would be taking pretty much half. So it would have to be more expensive, but this allows me to do it for you guys, a whole 9-day boot camp for this price. I'm really excited about it. And yeah, hop in if you want to learn how to design dragons. Like you're going to leave here being able to design and paint dragons, which is pretty darn exciting. All the classes I do are things that I wish I had when I was younger. So yeah, everything that I make, all the classes I make are always a response to like what I wish I had when I was learning. And it's a culmination of everything I know and everything I can do to support you guys. So definitely check it out. We already have a few signups going on from some former students who have taken my past classes. So really excited to see you guys in there. And yeah, this is a great one to jump in on if you guys have been curious about taking a class of mine, because it's very community based, like very, very community based, rather than like focusing specifically on one-on-one sessions and this kind of stuff. This is like very like collaborative and large scale. So this is going to be a good one. Okay, so I'll switch back over now. Thank you guys for bearing with my plug there. Let's hop back in on the dragon and we'll get it going here. Bam, bam. Cool. Yeah, I'm so darn excited. It's gonna be so cool. While I'm here though, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to put the link just in the chat so you guys can check it out if you're curious. Nice. Yeah. Cool. Oh yeah, and if you guys are in the Discord, definitely go through the link in the Discord because you guys get 15% off of this one. Okay. Where am I? Where are we? Here we are. Okay. Bam. Bam. Yeah, check it out. I'm so excited about this one. It's going to be sick. David Schmidt says, one last question. Did you ever finish the Fish World series? I never saw that finished and uploaded. Man, Fish World, dude, I have to be okay with releasing it in segments because that's a project that I started when I was like a little bit more naive about projects and I thought it had to be this like big, gigantic finished thing. before I was able to actually like upload it and put it out, which is turns out is just not true. Like you don't have to do that. You can put things out piecemeal. You can do like a like content drops, basically like DLCs. So what I'm gonna do is package a lot of it up and put it out as like post number one or like initial release, and that'll allow me to do kind of like piecemeal postings as time goes on, so that I can just kind of keep the project alive and stuff. Because I think initially I wanted to do like a big portfolio post, and I'm like, this is going to get me into Riot Studios and blah, blah, blah. And now I don't really want to work at Riot Studios anymore. I don't really want to do that stuff anymore. So, like, the motivation for that kind of thing is like kind of really dwindled for me. So I have to, switch my formatting, because it was initially this thing like, this is going to be my ticket out, man, my ticket into studio. And I thought I was going to move to LA and all that stuff, but I ended up moving to New York. I met the best woman in the world, and she lives in New York. So now I live in New York because, dude, when you meet that person, you do everything you have to make that work, man. And she's just the best. So I'm not in LA, so I'm not not gunning for those studio jobs like I was when I was younger. It's like a very different thing for me now, which I love, man. I love what I'm doing right now. It's like I think I'm the most content with like my art practice as I've been in my entire life. Like doing both personal world building stuff and also balancing that with the education stuff has just been the jam, man. I've been loving it. So, okay, let's do some work here. What I'm tempted to do is I'm tempted to kind of, yeah, like sort of light this in the same way that this weird photo or this painting is lit. In that I want it to feel almost like it's getting hit with like a flash, like a flash thing, and all the direct light is sort of like mainly kind of coming at you in these forms. So most things are like lit, and then the only places where they're not are like these very specific kind of crevices and areas where light just can't get to. So that's sort of how I want to light it. So I'm going to try to make it work in that way, and not make it look kind of corny and weird. That's a hard part when it comes to like dynamic or intense lighting that maybe you've never done before. I don't think I've ever lit something like this before, to be honest. So this will be interesting. But yeah, man, I'm so excited for the Dragon Design bootcamp, dude. It's gonna be so sick. This one I've been planning for a long time. I was initially gonna do it at the start of this year, but I wasn't satisfied with the material or the format, and there were still things I needed to figure out with it. So it feels really good putting it out now. Feels really good putting it out now. Yeah, so the whole thing is lit, right? Then this would also be lit, except for like around the edge there. This would also be lit around the edge, I think. Yeah, this too. This whole section would be pretty bright, I think. Heck yeah, man. Kind of focusing in. I know I've been streaming for like 2 hours when I start to go a little nonverbal. Like that's like that's the time. Cycle says, have you do you know Modern Day James? He's a great artist on here on YouTube that lives in NYC who also teaches his own animation classes. Dude, James and I, we're like we're like this. We're like this. Me and James, MDJ, the man himself. Yeah, dude, he was giving me so much grief when I went on YouTube and started just using like my name, like Gabriel Quinn, instead of like my YouTube handle, which is like Clueless Gabriel, because he was sort of like a random word slash random term and then name, like Modern Day James. Like, so he liked that I was kind of like that too, because my Instagram handle is Clueless Gabriel, which I think is like a fun thing. Um, but I ended up opting for just my name. And he was like, "What, man? No, no, it's like it's your whole thing. It's like the branding thing, and you're throwing it all away, man." I was like, "Yeah, I know. I just, I don't know. I feel like I want to use my name in a good way. I feel like I want to be, you know, I switched up." And he's just never forgiven me for that. No, James rules. He actually he really cut me a break early on when I was starting to stream, because I think I got my big boost. My first, I was like, I think at like 50 subscribers or something. And I actually joined him on his stream. And I think I got like another like 50 or 60, like that one stream. So like it kind of got me to like 100 subscribers, which was cool. And so yeah, James really helped me out there. But yeah, dude, I've hung out with James a bunch. I went to his birthday party in Brooklyn. He's a chiller, dude. James rules. I want to hang out with him more. It's just honestly, he's pretty much impossible to get a hold of. And to be honest, like so am I. Like I'm really hard to get a hold of. So I we don't hang out as much, but I always like think of him in a very fond way of like, "Oh yeah, James, yeah." Also, another thing that's kind of crazy is Steven Zapata is also a homie. I also love Steven Zapata. Steven Zapata actually was there the first time I got recognized from YouTube, which was sick. I was talking with Steven Zapata, and we were like, we were hashing it out, having a good time. And some guy comes up to me, not some guy, a really nice viewer comes up to me and is like, "I watch your streams, I blah blah blah." And Steven was like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, I'm glad I'm here for this." It was really sweet. So yeah, some of those guys I'm pretty close with, but I'd like to talk with them more, a little bit. But dude, it just gets busy. It's hard to stay in touch, man. But I feel like I should stay in better touch, though, I guess. Also, it's interesting. Everyone on YouTube sort of kind of has a character, if that makes sense. And it's funny because sometimes it's like you're friends offline, but when you're online, it's like, what do I play my YouTube character, with you on YouTube? Like, does it clash? Is that a thing? Who knows? It's hard to say. It's hard to know sometimes, like that kind of stuff. Like, ooh, should I do my bit right now? Should I do a bit? Like Steven's bit is really, I mean, of course, it's obviously like in large part quite genuine actually. Like he is that intense. He is very eloquent, very poetic in his nature, and he's very intense. He has strong convictions about what he believes in. One of the reasons why I respect him so much. And so like in that way, it's great. But then if we start talking, and he says some like pretty intense stuff, it's like, what, do I like disagree? Because like I know he's doing a bit, but then if I don't disagree, blah 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 blah. Anyway, you get the idea. But it's hard to like collab with other art YouTubers and stuff because it's like sometimes the ethos is just a little different, like how you teach or how you talk about art, even how you think about art. Everyone's so different, For me, I really come from a perspective of like I love drawing so much, and I want to make it as easy as possible for other people to experience the joy of drawing. And I want all the education stuff I make and everything I do to unlock people and set them free. That's like my biggest motivation, is I want to set people free from like the limitations they put on themselves. That's the most important thing for me. Half of the stuff in the classes, boot camps, and mentorships that I do is just removing barriers that people have put there on themselves. It's like the most common thing is that, So combating that is really hard. But it's my mission, man. That's my mission. All right, this is starting to look pretty cool, I think. So we've got kind of a cool sort of silhouette here. I actually think that this one, we're going to push it stylistically a little bit. So I think this one's going to benefit a lot from really deep shadows and very specific areas. Like, so maybe we can even start to turn up the shadows on here a little bit. Yeah, just enough. And let's turn the lines down slightly. We don't want the lines to be too intense here. Let's set them up here. Yeah, I've done, like, we've scheduled a bunch of streams before, James and I, to like hop on again and like do another stream together, but it just never lines up. Like, it's just like, cause he's busy, man. He's like, does a lot of hockey and he like plays guitar. He just does a lot of stuff. So it's like sometimes like art, of course it's his job, it's what he's doing, but when he's not doing his thing, it's not like he's still doing the art stuff. Like he's playing hockey, he's like going to screamo concerts and all that stuff. So hard to actually line things up schedule wise. But I love him. He's a chiller. Yeah, he was the one who initially kind of told me about Gumroad and how like it's really amazing to be able to offer things for people on there. You know, it's like a really cool thing we can do now that we couldn't really do before. You couldn't really go like direct to consumer in that way in the past, so it was like hard to put good information out. So many people have learned so much from James, man, including myself. I've learned so much from James, especially when I was younger, like in high school and stuff. Bit of a hero. So it's cool to spend time. Same with Ahmed. Like Ahmed's a homie, dude. I love Ahmed. He's a dear friend, and same thing. Just like he's just cool. He's a cool guy. But again, pretty much impossible to get a hold of. This guy's so weird, but I like him a lot. He's kind of cool. All right, let's just paint this. I feel like we just want to paint this pretty much, right? I think we want to do a little bit of editing on the shadows. Like we want some of the shadows to maybe be a bit cooler rather than warmer. I feel like that's going to serve this design a bit more. Yeah, nice. And then I think certain areas we want to just kind of blow out a little bit, like the face. We want to not have it be so high contrast, so we can just use our airbrush to lift the shadows on the face. We want the features of the face to be the main feature, I guess. We don't want the deep shadows to be the main feature. Okay, cool. So another thing you can do with something like this is just take the whole thing and just like bring it a step down, basically. Like sometimes I like to just put a whole like either linear burn or some kind of effect and just like drop the whole thing down to a deep value and just bring some of it back, just enough back to make a difference, to make it look kind of cool for where we want the light to be hitting. So a lot of this is going to be making this look wet. That's going to be a lot of the mission of this piece, is to make this certain features look kind of wet. So we're going to be doing a lot of that primarily. So again, one way to make things look wet is the art of the specular highlight, which is kind of cool. Oh damn, I didn't know that, Nabs. You found me through James's stuff. Damn, that first stream, eh? Where I did the rat riding the cat and accidentally made something that was like so suggestive. It was like such a mistake. It was really funny. Okay, let's also read here. David says Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia says dragons eat gold, not people. That's why they're always found laying on huge piles of it. That's hey, listen, man. He's a wise man, you know? Wise man, Charlie Day. Northern Lemon says, yeah, that is something I've thought about a bit lately. I don't know if I want to put my real name out there, but I feel like I should. So I'm easy to find across different platforms in the future. Yeah, one thing that's kind of cool is if you Google Gabriel Quinn, I come up. It's kind of nice. So that's huge, I think. Like having a Googleable, I don't know, like position on the internet is sometimes pretty good, you know? You don't want to be in a position where it's hard to find you. That's like not a good thing. But some people like to have a sense of, I think, what is it? Like anonymity. Like they want certain things to be separate, you know, so they don't want their real name to be out there. They instead would rather have some kind of like pseudonym or another name, you know what I mean? Which I totally understand. But I think that the everyone that I know that I really appreciate that has like changed my life, they all use their name. Like Ian McCaig uses his name. Uh, James Gurney uses his name. Like everyone I know that has like really impacted my life uses their name, and I think part of it is because they it's like the kind of sort of like bravery element of like they are just there. Like they are who they are. Like they're not afraid to be themselves in the world. And all of those guys are like so unbelievably benevolent, you know, like Ian McCaig and James Gurney. Those guys like literally changed my life with like how they think, you know? So much of how I think comes from Ian and James and all those guys. So I think that that motivated me a lot when I was figuring out who do I want to be on the internet, because who I want to be on the internet is exactly the same as who I want to be in person. I do not want any difference in who I am. Because those guys don't have any difference in who they are on or off screen. Like they're coherent, and I really really respect and value that. I think it's a massively underrated skill, or an underrated quality to just be coherent in who you are in all places that you are. You know, I mean, all my close friends will tell you I'm quite the jokester, so I can get pretty jokey. I can get pretty crazy, but still, like who I am overall is always the same. I care a lot about people. I want people to be actualized and successful in their life and feeling good about who they are and what they're doing. That's like my biggest motivator. In this life, it is my biggest motivator. So we're going to do some light rendering and stuff, like just like basic stuff I think we're going to be doing. So yeah, we'll grab this, copy that over, flatten it, and we'll just start rendering here. I think it's safe to just go ahead and start doing that. So I like hard round for this kind of stuff because hard round is sort of like, you know, honestly, it's like you gotta just at a certain point be decisive about your marks. Hard round is great to just be decisive about your marks and what you're trying to do and creating nice value shapes and whatnot. It's just good. Good overall. So we're going to be doing a lot of hard round as we finish this out. Ah, noted. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to think about, especially as you're, you know, like some artists want to just make art, and I think some artists want to really make an impact in the art community as well as make art. It's like this weird extra thing that not everybody wants to do, but a lot of people want to do it. I think some people like the idea of it but don't actually want to do it, and some people actually do want to do it. And I thought that I could have been one of those people who thinks they want to do it but doesn't actually want to do it. But it turns out I just do actually want to do it. Like I really want to make a difference and push people pretty far. Man, this kind of rendering is so much fun in my opinion. Like once you figured out your values, and then you can just push around the values. Like once you get all the correct shading and the light sources and everything you want, everything to feel like how you want it, then just like pushing the paint around and like making it look correct and look good. That's, oh, it's so satisfying. Like this kind of stuff, like figuring out like these forms and again those kind of light against dark, dark against light things. Like it's just so cool. It's just some of my favorite stuff to do, man. And yeah, we really want that like wet, shiny skin feeling for these things. You know what I mean? We want it to feel really like, ooh, like, ew, you know? Like we actually want that feeling, believe it or not. Because we're doing kind of like a flash sort of lighting, like it's kind of coming at the dragon directly, we can really push the darks in some of these shadows and let the silhouette be silhouette. I think maybe we'll possibly do a secondary light source, adding some rim light against a certain edge when we're close to being done. We'll do something like this where we have some added uh, like light to define certain things, because sometimes it's nice to have that kind of stuff to come in and like isolate out some areas. But for now, we'll do this very intense sort of lighting setup and scenario. Cool. Yeah. Do you guys like drawing creatures? Or like what are, if you guys don't like drawing creatures, like what are some barriers that are stopping you from drawing creatures, if you don't mind me asking? Kind of, I'd love to know. Yeah, we're having fun today with the evening stream, streaming in the eve. Love an evening stream. Typically, like, I think it's easier for people to tune in a bit earlier, but today I just had some stuff I had to take care of. But yeah, I hope seeing this process of me kind of make this thing give you guys a little bit more confidence to approach this kind of stuff. Um, for when you go to push your designs and like want to try some kind of experimental stuff like this. It's really fun. I can guarantee that. Let's see. Anne says, not knowing anatomy, sad face. Little Grim says, I like drawing creatures, but for me, to do it more often, I would definitely need to study more animal anatomy. Dude, that's like the easiest thing. The animal anatomy stuff, dude, it's so unbelievably easy. David Schmidt says, for me personally, just access to lessons I can afford. Udemy has tons of good ones that I get when on sale, but Udemy is lacking in the art area currently. Ooh, how unfortunate. How unfortunate. So those are the things that are stopping you guys from doing creatures. Is like you feel like you don't have enough information to design creatures. Man. Man, oh man. All right. Good to know, guys. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, anatomy is really honestly kind of like the big bad wolf for a lot of people. You just need to start. You're scared. Oh, interesting. Intimidating. Nab says, I'm also slowly getting into creature design, but I want to get into bug anatomy first. Ooh, that's cool. Northern Lemon says, I enjoy creature design a lot. A lot of stuff like fur can be difficult to render without making things too tedious. But yeah, anatomy can be tough. Interesting. Interesting, interesting, interesting. This is good data collection for me, guys, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you my advice if you guys are wanting to get more into creature design but feel like the anatomy stuff is too hard, just start with the skeleton. Just start with the skeleton. All you have to learn is the joint system, and you're pretty much good to go. The joint system is like the thing. Everything else you can work around kind of on the fly, but the joint system and the movement, that's the hardest thing. So just learn that there's a spine, there's a rib cage, there are shoulder blades or scapula or whatever. There's a hip joints, and usually there's some kind of tail, some kind of skull, right? And then there are legs in the back where the femur goes forward, and how it goes with animals, usually quadrupeds, is forward, back, and then the foot. And in the front, usually it goes back, forward, foot. And the things that change the most are the things towards the edges. So for instance, with like lizards, their fingers go out like this, you know, really long, and their heads are long, their tails go for long. But when it comes to cats and dogs, it's a little bit different, where instead of just being a foot, it kind of goes down, and then they go on the balls of their feet, or like the little pads. And on the front, it's the same thing. And this is the same thing for cats and dogs, basically. Once you get this, it's really just this simple. Every single creature is an iteration of this human joint, or this joint system. Even humans have this joint system. You have a rib cage, you have a spine, you have scapula, shoulder blades on either side, and your arms go back and then forward. You have your hips here, and your legs go forward and back. And you have your skull and all of that stuff. And your feet are here. So your heel for a cat would be here, right? But it's the same thing, basically. So when you figure out that, you're pretty much learning that every single structure of a creature is roughly based on the same template. And you can figure out those different creatures based on like their unique differences. But if you want to learn how to do birds, look up a bird skeleton. You want to learn how to do elephants, look up an elephant skeleton. That's like the easiest way to learn. It's so fast, and your confidence goes up like 1,000,000%, and you can actually just draw the darn thing. It's pretty cool. But it can be hard. It can be hard to connect those dots initially, especially if you don't know where to start and you're like kind of like thinking that anatomy is really hard. A lot of the discourse around anatomy is what makes it hard. Actually learning anatomy is like much more linear than you think, I think. Cycle S says, I think honestly just a lack of exposure. So true. And says it's crazy because I'm taking an anatomy medical class right now, and I have a test on the skeleton soon. Maybe I should do two birds on one stone and learn both. I mean, again, it's like the same structure for animals as it is for humans, basically. Like mammals in general, but even a lot of like reptiles and stuff and birds, like it all sort of is weirdly kind of the same thing in a way. Like it's kind of weird. Once you see all the similarities, it's like that's another thing about life on Earth is you start to see all of the echoes, repeating patterns and repeating shapes, and it all starts to just make sense. You can kind of just understand things easier once you if you dive really deeply into an area, it starts to open up deep places in other areas too. Which is my favorite part about art? My favorite part about art is you are a student of life. You're like a permanent student of life. And if you're not a permanent student of life, you will never attain the heights of mastery that you think you want. So really go for it. And actually learn this stuff, in my humble opinion. David Schmidt says, especially crazy how whales have giant Hand bones and bats too. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Elongated, but it is just the same frame. The same frame just pushed in multiple directions. It's really cool. Evolutionary biology is a really good thing to learn if you want to do creature design. It's a good one. All right, color for the eyes. I want to give it like really weird eyes. You know what we could do? We could actually give it just like black eyes. Would that just be way too freaky? But it would be, it's close to the ref though. Should we try it? Let's try it. Let's do it. Whoa, this already looks insane. Whoa, that's kind of freaky. I kind of like it. Not gonna lie, guys. This is sick. Heck yeah. Freaky. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. Oh yeah, we could do a tinge of like really bright orange. We could do that too. We could try that out, see how we like it. Orange works really well for the eyes. Typically, looks really good. Has that really nice like whoa, something like this. That's just straight up evil, yo, which I like. Yeah, that looks sick. Evil dragon doing some evil. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Evil dragon. Evil dragon. You know me, always singing my evil dragon song. All right, I think we have to increase the weird wetness factor of some of these forms, so I think we have to push them a little bit. I think this centerpiece we can lose this potentially. Have it just be like a weird semi-rounded piece. Freaky, man. What a freaky design. Man, this is the real like who's lasted the whole stream kind of vibe, you know what I mean? Like we're starting to really get on for a long time here. But I'm digging it. Yeah, I don't think we have time to render the whole thing, but we got pretty far, you know? Like I like the shapes. I think we made some interesting decisions about the texture and the look. You know, like we really, I feel like, got a lot of the funkiness out of this reference. We got a lot of the funkiness in the jam over here, you know? Like we got that weird looking vibe going on. I think if we wanted to keep pushing this, we just have to keep kind of pushing that vibe. Maybe we just want a couple of the elements to be a little bit more form defined, you know? Yeah. Another thing that makes something look really professional is oftentimes the silhouette, like the literal edge of the silhouette, the edge of what you're doing. That can really influence the look of doneness and completeness and like certainty that I think a lot of designs really need. So, for instance, something like this, just by being very decisive with the silhouette, and just having some nice, straight, well composed lines with a clean finish, again, just helps to create that strong look that we like. Man, this is a long stream today. We're doing a lot of rendering today, which I typically don't do on stream. What do you guys think? Do you like the more kind of slow paced rendering stuff, or do you guys prefer when I go kind of crazy with all the concepts, like moving really fast with the concepts and stuff, keeping it mostly in the sketch stage? I don't know. Ryan says sick. We're still alive. Like, yeah. Like was saying, loving the look of this critter. Its neck looks like it would inflate, like the squid head, to breathe fire, spit poison. Ooh, yeah, dude, absolutely. It looks like it has that thin kind of look, that kind of bulbousy, weird look to it. I just think it's just such a cool look, personally. Nab says both is fine. David says, I like that you keep it varied. You make good content. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, you know, everyone who puts stuff out online always feels the pressure of like, you know, thinking they have to be pretty homogenous with what they make. Like, I make this kind of content, you know, I make that kind of thing. I make this thing. But I do want to keep it pretty varied because art is pretty varied. And also, you know, when you're getting into art, like I my what I love is I love intercepting people who are like really just starting to take it seriously. Like they're really starting to take it seriously. They want to get good. They want to really get into it. They already like drawing. And so now it's like the next step is just like really just pushing themselves hard and they're really hungry for knowledge and all that stuff. Like that's where I like to catch people, you know? I think like there's a lot of people who are kind of like the how to draw a realistic eye in like that kind of space. And it's like that space is so necessary because like people are Googling that stuff, bro. People want to know how to do a realistic eye. They want to know. So did I when I was a kid, you know? But I like intercepting this very specific demographic of like very driven people who like want to push themselves to that next level. And it's nice because then the community is like pretty much has that vision, you know? Like everyone in the Discord kind of has that vision of like wanting to get to the next thing and wanting to attain that mastery of idea. Because the mastery of art will always come, but unless you really work for it, sometimes that mastery of idea is like pretty elusive. Like you never get it. And that can be a problem. And says, wow, this render is insane. Yeah, it's just honestly like it's all rendering is light interfacing with a material. So if you can try to wrap your brain around how a material works, like just like as it is, you know, you can render pretty much anything. Like for me, it kind of went from a switch where I like didn't really know how to render anything, and then I adopted that method of, oh, everything is just light interfacing with a material, and like all of a sudden I could like render anything. It was like a pretty big jump for me, which was cool. 10 out of 10 would recommend that approach. Yeah, starting to look pretty sick, I think. Yeah, buddy. Nice. Nice. David says, what I really like is how relaxing it is to watch. It's like watching a good podcast for art. You say interesting stuff and keep things flowing. I always have good topics to talk about. Hey, thanks, man. That's awesome. Heck yeah. You know, I always say like, oh guys, like comment what you want to see, comment what you want me to talk about, you know, like any topics you guys are curious about, and just, you know, ask me and I'll put it out there. And very rarely will someone actually like drop a comment and be like, oh, could you do this? Or what about this? What are your thoughts on that? I love when people do that because it actually gives me like a reason to stream again, because I'm like, oh, someone asked this. Let's talk about that. I'm so willing, guys, to talk about anything you want. Just ask. Oh yeah, good reminder, guys, like the video. Please, please like the video. Please. You don't have to, but I asked nicely. So we're gonna stick with silhouette for these guys here. Because again, these things we can afford to just keep them as silhouettes, I think. So yeah, a big thing with painting in general, just art in general, I guess, is that your eraser is a brush. You should be thinking of your eraser as if it's a brush. It's not just a tool to remove mistakes. It is a tool to define material by removing material, which is pretty good. It's a pretty big one. All right. You know, we're getting close to probably calling this one. I mean, it still needs, like, I need to do a render pass on basically, like, everything else pretty much. Like, that's got to happen eventually. But we're pretty close overall, I think, on this guy. Cyclist says, weird question. If this creature is a quadruped and has wings, would it have two scapulas? Since it looks like the wings are coming out of the neck / traps. So this is the eternal question for creature design, specifically dragon design, is like, how do you make some? Because there are actually, I'm pretty sure, aren't there like no? I think it's just bugs that have wings and also 4 legs. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's literally no creature, no living creature that has wings and 4 legs. Oh no, there's a lizard. This guy. Here he is. This is our winner. So actually, you've brought up something really important, which is that this is what breaks immersion, basically, for fantasy creatures, is that there are no living creatures that have wings and 4 legs, unless they're like bugs or that one lizard or flying fish. But flying fish don't have legs. Every single thing else, their arms are their wings, basically. So dragons are a mythological made-up creature that doesn't exist. They don't exist at all. So this anatomy for this creature is already impossible. So when you're doing a dragon, you have to first have the humility and the understanding to say, this isn't real. This is a fake thing. Doesn't make sense. And people have tried to do dragon skeletons that kind of make sense, but none of them ever really make sense. So yeah, this one, it's kind of coming out of the trap area, the kind of high up area. We probably want to increase the level of musculature and kind of make it a bit more proportional, potentially. So we might want to like make the musculature just a bit more defined, let's say. Like instead it's kind of taking up this much space on the body. This is all stuff you can kind of like push around and edit as you're finishing the paint and all that stuff. But yeah, they would have 2 sets of scapula pretty much. They would have like a lower set on like the main part of the body and a higher set on another part of the body. Another area where people oftentimes put wings is like down here, like on the back, like behind the shoulders and whatnot. We can even look at a couple dragons to see. Yeah. This is like the classic dragon, dude. This one is the one that I drew. I drew a million of these guys when I was a kid. Like this specific one. So you can see how they've kind of made sense, where they're like, there's a forward bit of anatomy where the shoulders are kind of low and front on the body, kind of like a lizard or a horse. And then there is another set of like muscle groups and bones that are coming out of the top back part of the body. So these things combined, it's basically you're mashing a lizard skeleton with a bird skeleton. But the thing is, for both of them to function, you would need 2 sets of collarbones, which a dragon does not have. So this thing would never be able to fly because it doesn't have the proper pectoral muscles to work the wings. And then again, it's an unfortunate fact. It's a sad fact, realizing that dragon anatomy, it can never be, you know? Unfortunately, it can just never be. It's a sad discovery. Same with angels. Like angels, like human, like kind of the churchy ones. Like if you tried to make an actual churchy angel work, that it would need to be like a person with like collarbones that are like this big. They would need to be like this shaped in order to work, you know? Which is cool. Northern Lemon says you should make a giant fire-breathing dragon based off a red panda. Oh, that's a great idea. I'll do that for the class. Ryan says flying lizard for the win. Absolutely. David says they don't need scapula necessarily. Octopus don't have bones in most of their body. That's true. It's mostly for the wings. Like if wings, it like because we're taking kind of goopy material reference from this, but if we want this creature to be able to fly, like let's say for instance, like it would have to have the rigid structure to support the muscle groups that support the bones that would make it possible to actually like extend out the lighter material for the wings to like generate lift, and also like the muscle power to be able to pull that rig around, you know? So we would need a skeleton to make sure this thing can fly and for the audience to kind of believe it could fly. But, you know, you're right. Like, we could lean into the sort of octopus-esque vibe for like the bottom part of the body, let's say. Like, we could kind of have like a weird sort of like almost it's sort of an eldritch dragon. Like, we could actually do that. That's actually not a bad thinking now that I'm thinking about it in greater think detail. It's possible, maybe. You could try something like that. Yeah, and from here, pretty much we can just kind of push and pull. And when you're at this stage of rendering on a creature, you've pretty much it's just time now. Like, we could just keep rendering this, you know, for a good while if we want to, or we could move on to the next thing, which is I want to look at some of the dragons from some of the patrons in the Discord. So we'll hop over to that. I'll pull a couple of those in, and we could see. So this guy's pretty sick. I think we got to a good place with him. The one thing I would change about this design, just kind of instantly, is I would select that, or I would opacity lock. I think what I would do is I would push the horns. I think I would do something like this, where I took a really dark value, like pretty much a black, I think, and I would push it towards the eyes to generate a really intense sense of contrast. And the same thing on the other side. And once I have something like that, you can always do things like adding in some cool, almost like pearlescent hues to it. Like, you can sort of like almost pretend like there's some kind of cool, strange material that allows for potentially some like iridescent colors or something in a couple areas that we could push and try. Man, I have all the music from like Hades 2 like stuck in my head. So we're just adding a couple little motifs here for some cool potential like weird ultra vibrant scenarios where there's some kind of cool material elements to these that maybe we don't know so much about. It's always fun to add some like kind of peachy sort of pinks in there too, with sometimes with these kind of like pearlescent looks or something. Yeah, just don't be afraid to experiment. Experimentation is like half the fun of what this is, you know? Don't be afraid to try some cool stuff. There's so many options, so many cool things to do. Hello. Wow, looks like O joined the chat. O says, OMG, finally caught you live. You sure did. Here I am. I always love getting that message all the time. I love it. I love when people are like, hey, finally caught you live. I'm like, nice. It's like, you already know me. You know, it's easy. I don't have to introduce myself. You know who I am. So easy. Dude, everyone's like complaining about parasocial relationships. Like, oh, people come up to you, they think like they're your friend, they think blah 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 blah, blah or all this stuff. It's so weird to me because it's like, if you watch my stuff, like, you can't be like a terrible person. I don't know. Maybe I have way too much faith in my community, but I really genuinely feel like everyone who stumbles on here is like a really kind, like kind of humble, sort of a very um like kind, modest sort of person. Because that's just the vibe. Like, you wouldn't watch me if you were like one of those like really intense concept art bros. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't watch me if you were that kind of person. So whenever I meet people who know me from the stream, and they're like, oh, I watch your live streams, I'm like, oh, cool. It's like I can instantly get along with those people because like you just can't be, like, I don't know. I don't know. I like to think about it like, you know how like certain bacteria can't live in certain environments because it's like too hot or like too intense. Like, I want my personality to be so intense that people who are like terrible or kind of like belligerent or degenerate, like those kinds of people just cannot be around, and like sometimes they come through the chat and you can kind of tell like, oh, this person is like coming from Twitch or something. But for the most part, I'm just really, really grateful for the community that shows up here. Like, I'm just so lucky that you guys hop in and stuff. And so whenever someone comes in and is like, oh, I caught you live, boom, long time watcher, first time live stream watcher or something, I'm like, let's go. Another one. Hell yeah. Also reminds me like I'm actually reaching people, which is like sick. I love that. Yeah, I was so lucky to meet a bunch of viewers when I was tabling at Lightbox last year. It was just the most fun time. It was so cool. It was so nice meeting everybody. Like, I'm not tabling this year, but I'll probably try and table next year. We'll see what the roster's looking like, because a lot of the times like the admin guys like really want a nice like diverse group of artists and a bunch of really cool folks, and it's like Lightbox is such a particular community. It's like they really want it to be like a strong community. It's like not so much like it's like a little bit sort of like a vendor convention, but it's mostly cool, not all industry people, but like a lot of people who like are just very dynamic and interesting, which is nice. So we'll see. We'll see if there's a spot for me next year. But yeah, this year I didn't apply. They have this thing where they really want turnover, so like you can't really do 2 years in a row. And I'm glad they said that, so I like saved the trouble of applying. All right, dude, this render is starting to look really clean. The opalescent horns, like, wow, what a bold decision that came out really nice. Like, I really like it. I think it looks really good. The only thing about this piece right now is the eyes are wrong. So one eye is looking at you, but the other one isn't. So we're going to make sure it's looking at you. This one too. I keep saying like, oh, and now we're going to finish, but I keep working on this. Almost there. Almost there. Yeah, that feels a lot stronger now. Oh man, dude, if 10-year-old Gabriel could see this right now, could like see what I'm doing, dude, he'd be so excited. All right, let's keep iterating. I like to save versions while I go, so I have like a good sense of the process that I use to get somewhere. It's nice to see the whole thing kind of all at once, if that makes sense. Let's see. David says they don't need. Oh, would an octopus dragon be called an octagon or a droctopus? Maybe. Who knows? And thanks, O. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, we're working on some cool dragon designs from scratch. So we're taking some cool references and we're pushing them, into fun dragon designs. They're pretty cool, I think. Octagon, like the shape. Oh, haha, true. We could make this into an octagon dragon, probably. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I feel like good painting fundamentals, you really want to be able to have control over the lasso tool really well. Lasso tool helps a ton. You want to have really good control over your hard versus soft brushes. And then the last piece is just knowledge, man. But it's less the technical stuff than people think. It's like you need some motor control, obviously. You know, every discipline needs some strong motor control. But for the most part, you're really wanting to get your knowledge of what you're doing to be a more complete set of knowledge. I like this, but it's choking up too much on the head. You need to push it back a bit. Man, I got bombarded like last week or like a week ago with a bunch of what is it, like affiliate stuff, where people are like, oh, you know, do this affiliate program, that affiliate program. It was like, I think this one agency or this one service just like hit me with like 10 affiliate offers all at once. It like gave me the ick, bro. I was like, what is this? What even is this? I don't even know who I would partner with. Like if I could pick a sponsorship, I don't know who I would sponsor. I don't know what I would do there. I don't like sponsorships, to be honest. I think they're super weird. They're like really weird. I think I would want a sponsorship with like a company that like I really like, that I think are just great, you know? Wow, we've gotten really far with this piece, guys. I'm really digging it. I think there are fireworks going on outside. But what is today that fireworks would be necessary? I really don't know. All right, if I don't stop now, I'm going to keep working on this for like another hour or something. So I think this is a good outcome. So let's talk about how we got here. So, because I think that one thing I want you guys to have some confidence with is that I want you guys to have confidence in that if you follow a strong process, you can get to a really strong conclusion and a really strong outcome. So that was the main goal of today's kind of, not lesson, but today's kind of sort of a challenge, I guess. We'll call it that. We'll call it a challenge, which is we wanted to feel really confident adapting some fun influences into a creature design that was related, but still in many ways different. So I think some last things I want to do is like just define out some silhouette probably. Yeah, we can just define out some silhouette stuff here pretty easily with this. Just add that last kind of dark value. Add in some cool. Wow. Yeah, that's nice. I like it. Nice. Yeah, so I wanted you guys to feel confident and excited about trying a process like this and kind of pushing your own limits, figuring out what you're capable of. So the first example we looked at was one that I had already kind of done, essentially, where I had, let's see, yeah, it's all here. Yeah. So I had taken a mountain lion reference like this. I looked at the face anatomy and the structure and all of that stuff. And then I looked at this like shrimp-like creature, this kind of crustacean-y creature, and all of its different shapes and values and what makes it look kind of cool and translucent and strange. And I applied that to a amalgamation where I took that snarl look and imagined it with some alternate anatomy that was more kind of dragon anatomy. So this one went more in the direction of just kind of like a fun kind of graphic illustration that kind of looks good or looks kind of interesting, which I like. We focus somewhat on material and kind of getting the shapes to look good, getting the certain just very appealing things, you know. This one's a lot brighter than the other one. And the second one we did was we looked at a kind of serval cat that we did some sketches of. This is before the stream, you know. I kind of took some liberty of looking at these kind of poses and how it's looking. And then I adapted that along with this kind of weird material reference for this like strange painting of a squid that I think it looks pretty cool, pretty good. And we started with, I think, yeah, just some base colors and texture. And we ended up like pretty much, we darkened it as well. And then we ended up just rendering it as is. So we just pushed it to a pretty far place with the rendering and got to a pretty strong outcome where it has this sense of creepy, strange kind of wetness to it that has us kind of going like, ooh, like it's very soft and it looks very soft and strange. You know what I mean? Like just kind of how we wanted it to. We added in a fun motif of like the opalescent horns, which I think just looks so cool. I always love that look. So that's pretty sick. Oh yeah, so if there's fireworks for you, Ryan, that must be they must be doing it in the not the Hudson, the other one, the one on the west side. Um, yeah, yeah, must be then, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think overall this is a pretty successful piece. I'm really happy with how this came out. I think I might just tighten up the silhouette in a couple areas, you know, just kind of bring it up a little bit maybe. Yeah, that looks somehow better, even though it's like really creepy now. Yeah, nice. Pretty strong outcome. I like it a lot. So now I would invite you guys to do this. Like, try it out and post it. You can tag me, send it to me on Instagram or whatever. Try this process where you take a creature design or some kind of animal or something, and you push it into a design where you're taking enough influence of both the structure of the creature and also the material of your reference. You can kind of choose anything and just kind of go from there. I think that's a great way to get a lot of really compelling designs and how most people work just in general. So let's look at some cool dragons that were done from the participants in the Discord. So first we have to look at the assignment, which I designed the assignment to be pretty darn fun. So I've been doing these mission briefings kind of style assignment where the whole vibe of my server is like we're all kind of looking for knowledge, and I think about it like it's a scout corps. So it's like we're going into other worlds and discovering things, figuring things out, and taking that knowledge back. So I always theme the assignments off of like a mission briefing. So this mission briefing, which is Interworld Scouting Mission, The Last Dragon Rider, the mission subject, right? We this is the known information, so kind of stuff that you should be including in the assignment. So there is an individual who has created a bond with a mythical dragon creature. At this time, we do not know the nature of this relationship or what purpose it serves. We know that the mythical dragon creature allows the individual to ride on its back, which is uncommon in this world. So that's like specific knowledge for this world. Like this is a special bond, a special connection. And conflicts seem to be common occurrence in this world. Act with caution in your scouting. A little bit of flavor text there. So required information. This is the stuff that like you should be showing in your design, basically. So find out what the nature of this relationship is. What is their goal? Who are they? Additionally, mission control needs to know more about this world. Any additional notes and information will go far in your scouting career. Mission control thinks there could be a key antagonist and rivalries that will affect large events in this world. Find out more about these conflicts and include the information in your final outcome, which is what it was supposed to say. That's embarrassing. Anyway, the return to mission control in 7 days Earth time. So basically 7-day assignment. You had 7 days to complete a fun challenge. I think I gave an extension because it was in May and it was like my birthday. So I was like, you get an extra couple days, you know. The challenge rating was B, so not super challenging, but not easy. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just a layup. You know, you have to show the character and their relationship and all of that stuff. So it was a lot of information. So that was the jam there. So let's take a look at the outcomes here. So mission hand in. Yeah. So here's one from Marco. Marco, longstanding member of the community. We love Marco. So we have a dragon here and a character that accompanies the dragon. So here's the sketch of like the function of the idea. So I spoke with Marco about this a number of times where, you know, we looked at this and kind of like what you need to show and all that stuff. So I think his idea was the dragon rider is for some kind of mail service, like mail carrier service. So like it delivers stuff. And so this is kind of what that would look like. Essentially, you have this large structure here where there's like a little cabin and it's almost like a boat that's on a dragon essentially. And there's lots of 3 boxes here, as you can see. So it's like carrying cargo and kind of traveling around. So the individual here that we can see is this kind of adventurous character. You know, he's got some modern motifs like a Hawaiian shirt and a little patch here. And this is his little, I like the little ID thing. And this is kind of fun, like a kind of like an identification thing. He's got his tinted glasses, a big swooshy bouffant hair, a sword, so it's got that fantasy element, so maybe there are brigands in this world, who knows, and a compass, obviously, for navigation. And he's got his boxes and his big backpack with a bunch of boxes. Additionally, there is the dragon itself, which is this big dragon with the big kind of structure on its back. The dragon's got a sense of humor about it, and that the proportions are quite pushed. So the proportions for the dragon are quite pushed here. The neck is getting quite thick towards the head, so all of this stuff. Like this feels like a design like kind of aimed towards maybe like TV animation where this kind of push proportion would like work and then kind of like look good. So I feel like it fits in that world. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this in like a Phineas and Ferb style show or something like that where it has some dynamism. There's not a lot of information on how the structure connects to the dragon. It kind of just like sort of sits on there, or how like the wings overlap or anything. So obviously I know like not everyone's going to go into crazy detail about that kind of stuff, but that kind of missing information sort of makes me take the idea a little less seriously, which is maybe why I think a little bit more towards TV animation. Like that stuff isn't thought through, so it's kind of like maybe for a more simplified project or something. Yeah, I think technically, artistically, the texture work is a little bit hasty. I think I would want to see a little bit more consideration with the texture work for something like this, where yes, there's kind of like directional mark making, but maybe pulling up some reference and figuring out what exactly you want this to look and kind of feel like, if this makes sense. The silhouette is strong. It's a strong read from far away. I like it. The posture is fun. You know, I know who the dragon is just kind of by looking at him. They got this kind of like, you know, like kind of look where, you know, they're like, I don't like my job, but I'm doing my job. So I like that element, that the personality is really clear in the face here. That's a really great, strong mark. The hair color, I like. It's fun. Adds an element of humor and pizzazz, and the kind of dog nose gives it a very docile and friendly look, even though it has really sharp teeth. It looks very friendly and docile because of the big dog nose, which is nice. Yeah, the anatomy for the most part, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Overall, dragon silhouette, dragon shapes. The wings are a little confusing in terms of what's going on there, which is like, we spoke about that a little bit before about that. And again, because of how, like, if you want to draw like a simplified, more cartoony dragon, sometimes it's like that stuff isn't as important, let's say. But for instance, like this curve here, like what is actually producing a curve? Like there shouldn't actually be a curve in that direction. There would be a curve downward, most likely, because again, it's like a curved articulating elongated finger in theory, if we're going off of that model for wings, but we don't have to. Overall, I think it's a great job here. The only thing I would say is the values and some of the shadows are a little mismatched. Like I think the shadows on the neck are potentially like a little bit dark, and I think like some of the mapping of the shadows isn't consistent. Like it's top down from the top of the head, but then it's coming from the side to the bottom, and it's same thing with the legs, you know? So it feels very, like it's very composed in terms of the lighting, but it's not as consistent or like naturalistic, let's say. Again, a lot of, like nitpicks, I suppose. For the character, I would say the same thing. The shadows are looking just a little bit dark on this guy. Like I think you could lift the shadows on this for the most part, and it would look a little bit more correct, I think. Sorry for the sirens, guys. This is crazy. Yeah, so for instance, one way you can tell your shadows are too dark, by taking your like base color and just like literally going over with like just a very light touch, you know, of what you already have. And if that looks more natural, like that just like looks more correct and more natural, you know you've gone too far with the shadows. Same with this bag on the back. Like the bag on the back, this is a very light color, so the shadow value would like not even be close to this. It would probably be something like this. And you think you have to go dark with the shadows, but you really don't have to go dark with the shadows, you know? And this, again, just like looks more correct on average. So this is the problem with multiply layers, which is why I don't typically like using multiply layers, or I'll really heavily edit them after, like I did today. But yeah, stuff like this, again, it's like almost there, but it's just too much. So we're just lifting the shadows a little bit, and already this looks much more natural. So we can copy this, we can undo all those changes we made, and we can show you where those changes should be made. So something like this, you can see it's like just looks way too dark, way too high contrast. It's much more naturalistic. So little things like that, just getting a bit more finesse with your values for your shadows, just like help a design kind of come to life. But overall, it's got a lot of great charm. It's got a lot of fun. I like it. Great work, Marco. Good job. Let's see here. Let's look at another. A lot of great ones. Oh yeah, this is great. This is from May. Oh, same one posted. Yeah. Conceptually, I like this one a lot. I like, yeah, so the individuals under investigation. So I like that it's like a mission report. Like you framed it like this is your report hand in, you know, like, and it's like you're sketching from what you're seeing and all of that stuff. So let's see. There's a local taxidermist, very interesting. Local taxidermist, and then this person, Sandra Orrin, is accused of illegally Tammins. Turning. Ah, illegally turning a horned creature in the forest that borders the property of these rivers and neighbors. No, this is taming. I'm such a fool. It looks like an S here. For taming a beast. So this beast was tamed and this was illegal and bad. So that's why it's uncommon. That's cool. So they kind of like supplied the reason for, why the bond is uncommon. Accusation of original report confirmed this observation. Additionally, child endangerment charges. That's funny. The bureaucratic side of these fairy tale stories. That's hilarious. Sandra Owen's granddaughter has been witnessed interacting, though not riding the creature, under her grandmother's supervision. Oh, that's cute. So it's like grandmother-granddaughter vibe. Ooh, I like the look here. Very stoic, very intense. This is nice. I like this. And the creature is wild. Let's look at the creature. So we have a more defined sketch for the creature here. So the creature findings, I love this. From memory. I love that note. That's great. So I like this idea of what a dragon could be. That, what we think a dragon could be may not necessarily be what this world would interpret a dragon to be. So we have some kind of horned things sprouting up. It looks kind of like it reminds me of the Great Forest Spirit from Princess Mononoke, which I think is just fantastic. The anatomy, although it's kind of this sort of like almost like a donkey in a way, the legs are feeling a little bit more like either canine or feline or something. So it actually does have that fun dragon-y sense to it. You know what I mean? So I think this is pretty interesting how the interpretation goes here. I also love that the ears are the wings. Like it's funny. It's got that sense of whimsy and magic, and it's got its own flavor. So I like that you put your own spin on this and had a bunch of fun with it. Great work, May. This was so cool to look at. We have a drawing here from Seth. So I previously looked at this work and did kind of like a pretty rough paint over of what the lighting scenario of this creature could be, kind of like flying through the sky. I think this one, I like it as is. I think that what I would probably want from something like this, because it's very beautiful, you know what I mean? Like the clouds in the sky, the colors, the forms, all that stuff. I think that I would just want a little bit more definition in areas that I don't understand. So I like all the cool metallics you have going on here, how it's like this really interesting brassy kind of armor and it's kind of going over the wing and all of that stuff. You got these deep shadows, this character riding. But when it comes to the overall shape and all of that stuff, I think that there's not enough structural information for me to like believe this illustration. So again, I think on the body of the dragon, you have a lot of great information and like there's a lot of great form information, and I can see how this thing would kind of land and fly and all of that stuff. But when it comes to the wings and everything, I think that yeah, we would just want a little bit more, like maybe some of these areas to find out a bit more, like the kind of empty space where the structure of the wings would be, and maybe some more definition around some of the areas that kind of go out to where the wings are, stuff kind of like that. Nothing too crazy. You could even borrow some of these light values and push them across. Also, when you're this high up in the air, the difference between light and shadow is pretty intense. So like, or when you're like being hit with really direct sunlight like this, it's pretty intense. So areas that are being illumined, like this area that's light over here, it would be as light over here, because again, it's like it's all being hit by sunlight. So having the consistency of the light versus dark values is actually going to help with believability for something like this. Because again, it's like it's flying in the air, it's being hit by the sun in the same way. The only thing you might see is a little bit of atmospheric perspective if it's like a huge dragon and or if it's like in the clouds slightly, you know what I mean? You'd get some dimming there. But overall, you'd get the same kind of light and dark values as you would get across the other edge. So things like that, I think, would really help this piece, as well as a bit more structure on the head. I think that like the angle of the head, although it's like you've got a nice S-curve here, I think we can push the S-curve like in the same way, but we can have the head maybe at a 3/4 view, so we can see like more of the eyes or the nose or something, like maybe it's flying towards us or something like that. And then the last thing is just some consistency of like maybe the other leg on the backside, something like that. So yeah, I think a bit more I would want to push it a bit more on some of the structural information in terms of some of the anatomy and everything. And I know it's like people are doing these from imagination and all that stuff, but that would really help this piece is if there was more of that. And then when you have the structure and things are kind of going back and you sort of have consistency over like what's getting hit by light, what's getting hit by shadow, it's easier to track the forms and all of that stuff when you have that information. Also, the neck's looking a little bit thin, I think, personally. Want to maybe thicken that up a slight bit. But yeah, great work, Seth. I love it. Again, the concept is cool. I love the kind of blue turquoise dragon with this like gorgeous brass lined seating and everything. It looks so cool. But yeah, maybe a little bit more in some of those other areas so that we have some consistency when it comes to the lighting and the structure. But yeah, great concept. Love the idea. Really beautiful piece. Okay. There's a couple more here. Here's a fun one. This one was done by Nick. He was a former student who has done really great work in my classes. And I like that there's an immediate like sense of the world pretty much instantly, which is like there are people who are based around these kind of cat dragons, and we have kind of a cat dragon here. So like kind of what we did today, to be honest, modeling the dragon after the cat, you know what I mean? Like and here I can see in this design sketch, you've like thought through the structure, the look, you've got the side view, the 3/4 view in the front of kind of like this sort of a almost plant-like kind of cacti or this kind of sprigging kind of look here, which I love. This is kind of cool. And then I like that the wings, you're doing the big eyes on the wings. Like I love those designs where people really like make almost like dragons or big creatures like this look like moths or bugs or have those kind of same design motifs. And you have the people who are like serving them or riding them. It's almost like a family here. So I instantly understand everything about this idea. So yeah, great work there, Nick. Yeah, I like the construction of the thing. My one note is it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but it's like the really wide hatch lines for stuff that's in the background. I just think there's better ways to do that. Like either just go black with what's in the back, like just go black, or keep it a bit more consistent. Like these hatch lines are a little bit more consistent back here. They feel like they're actually defining something that's behind rather than just sort of like very high contrast being there in a way that almost takes away from the overall shape. Like it makes me confused about the forms. So I would always consider people to like reconsider when they want to define something behind with hatch lines. Just reconsider it. Or when you're doing it, make sure you're doing it with some intention, some consistency, and that it's not too high contrast or intense that it's pulling your eye. Like this is tasteful and good, the back legs here. Yeah, great work, Nick. This is sick. I love it. Let's see some other ones. Oh yeah, the one from Aurora's. This is so cool. So still kind of in the development sketch stage for this one. We have a really cool dynamic scene here with really dynamic perspective. I love the intensity and the sense of scale here. It's looking really cool. And then some additional lore pages for the character. We have this, and then we also have one last one, I think, right? Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so cool. Really great work, Auroras. Love the dedication. Auroras always shows up in the strongest way. Another former student doing really well. So yeah, let's take a look. So this just in, looking up that black shadow, no cloud. Mwah. Come see. Dragon egg. See the dragon's egg. At the socialite Maxium Barnes Manor of Oddities. Oh, this is so fun. This urgent is soon to be front page. This is so fun. So it's like a newsy character who's like promoting this dragon thing. So there's okay, so she's riding the dragon. A world without dragon riders doesn't have dragon saddles. Oh yeah, so there wouldn't be a saddle. They would have to figure something out. That's a fun world building note there for sure. Surely a fishing net stuck to the horns will work. That's fun. I like the problem solving, thinking about like what would happen if a world didn't have dragon riders, but you wanted to be a dragon rider, like what that would even look like, you know. The scale here is really great. I like this this vibe. The stupid also stupid is hilarious. Love the wings. These shapes look so juicy. These wing shapes, very nice. I love it. I like the body of the dragon too. I like the lanky look. It feels like a horse or like some kind of like a lanky dog. It looks like my dog actually, in the best way, in like a very handsome way. I like the texturing on the head. Texturing is good. When you're going to a finish, certain things will conflict with other things. So if you're using really fine lines for certain details and like kind of you're leaving construction lines in, like that's fine. But then if you use a lot of airbrush and a lot of like non-finely textured things that don't have a lot of tooth to them or like bite or something, it will kind of sort of clash. So like really thin sort of scratchy lines with like really big airbrushy textures sometimes will clash a little bit. And get a little bit busy, like down here. It's a little bit busy with the detail going on. So I think you could simplify some of those areas a little bit. I think look at some other kind of pen and ink illustrators that you admire that you think are really good. And yeah, definitely check out how they solve those kinds of problems with like matching up under color with, you know, texture and line and all that stuff. So the last thing here is I like this. I'm a little confused about the story. I mean, she's got her newspapers, the dragons here looking. So maybe they're comparing like, oh, you know, like they're writing about the egg or there's some kind of story there. But I really just love all the drawing that's going on here. Like really great exploration of space and scale. I think this is really nice. Yeah, this is great. This is great. I think there's a couple things that I think no, it's all pretty self-explanatory. So she's discovered a dragon. She's a newsie, and I think she's like promoting a dragon egg. It's pretty great. Yeah, love it. This is fun. Great work, Auroras. Fantastic. And we only have a couple more to go. Oh yeah, love this one. This one's great. So this is from Rowan, another former student, done some really fantastic work. Yeah, you guys really showed up for this one. I was really impressed. This one's great. So we've got this fun page with lore and there's so much information here. So what I like instantly is that you kind of matched the design style of the assignment. Like it's just kind of like looks like it could be like another thing, which is really cool, which I just like. So we've got the information on the rider. So we can see they're this kind of like very like hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon if they were just like 17, you know, a little bit older maybe. Really great proportions for that. The kind of like thick neck, smallish head with the kind of thin sort of body. Like it's a really great proportion set for a character like this, for this kind of, protagonist character that you're supposed to sympathize for. Really great execution of just very simple drawing to communicate good volumes, like the kind of thickness of the boots here and all that stuff. Like it's communicating a lot of great information in like an elegant, simplified way. So great stuff there. I can really tell that this artist, Rowan, has done a lot of mileage, been doing a lot of drawing, and there's like a great natural feel to how they draw, which is really awesome. So we've got some lore here. Son of the alchemist who made the feathered dragon. He escaped with the creature after royal soldiers came to arrest his father for treason against the kingdom. He lives on the run now with the dragon with the dragon and cares for it like it's a family pet. That's really cute. So he doesn't seem to be much of a fighter from what I've seen. He often instead will outsmart or outmaneuver his foes in order to escape. One can assume he takes after his father. Haha. So this is fun. So he's got like some regular dragons, which have more kind of traditional wings we can see. And then his dragon has like more feathered wings and is more of a softy little cute boy, which I love. I love that. It's very reminiscent of some of the original concept art for How to Train Your Dragon, where the dragon looks like a bunny. It kind of reminds me of that in many ways, which I like. Escaping Pegasus Knights. Ooh, that's cool. Oh, I like this. That's really cool. Like they're chasing after and he's like trying to get away. Oh, it's a great shot here. Really, really great. And this one, a great moment where the characters are just kind of like very at rest in a moment, spotted their camp. I love that. This is a great presentation. I love this. This is so cool. So spotted their camp. So it's like, this is them at rest, kind of figuring out their next move. Maybe they've got like rocks and lines. Maybe they've laid down some maps or some parchment. Son of an alchemist, so maybe he's got some cool alchemy stuff going on too that they're figuring out. Yeah, I love this one. This is great. And the dragon itself, I think I like the design a lot. I think the only thing that I'm missing here is a little bit of consistency. So the head's a bit small here compared to what we see here for the body, I think. Or is it? Yeah, it's a hair small. It's a hair small, which when you get this small, it looks like it's a pretty big difference. So I think it could be like maybe twice as big, 2/3 big, you know, to kind of match the energy of this one. And that's partly why this looks so cute, is because of the head size. It has to be a certain size to kind of look cute. You could even make it bigger, to be honest, here than you did before, and it kind of ups the cuteness factor. But at least having them be consistent would be good for sure. So feathered dragon, wow, hell yeah. Unlike other species of dragons I've seen well here, after some time investigating, I've come to learn why. It was created by an arcane alchemist in service of the rulers of the kingdom he lived in. I believe it was intended to be used as a weapon. So it's like a genetically engineered dragon. That's kind of cool. I like that vibe. I think because it's genetically engineered, I think what you could do is like, thinking about this in color, it could have a sense of like what a dragon would typically look like. Like maybe it has some silvery qualities or some kind of like interesting material qualities or like iridescence or something. And then it maybe should feel like it was created. Like it feels like it's a strange alternate thing. Like it's not a normal thing. This looks pretty normal as it was. Like a created creature needs to look a little bit more exotic for that narrative to be like really impactful and like land really well. So there's that element. I realize I've been in the little corner of the circle this whole time. Yeah. So then, while dragons here are reptilian, the alchemist appears to have created this creature with an avian DNA somehow. I tried to find his research on the matter, but it was destroyed. The alchemist, after his changed heart, nobody could replicate his work. Ooh, interesting. So like it's the last one. I love that. So cool. Okay, really great work, Rowan. I understand everything I need to from these drawings and from the text, and I think it's a really great submission. Very strong. If you want to take it to the next stage, I think the main character is like totally fine. I think with expressions, expressions are something that it's a very high ceiling in terms of what you can achieve with them. The floor is pretty low as well. Like you can kind of just draw expressions and leave it at that. You can just draw any expression and just kind of move on. Like, okay, I did the expressions. But when you're doing expressions, you're not just showing this is what the character looks like when they're happy. This is what the character looks like when they're angry. You're not just matching volumes. You're not just doing that stuff. You are instead saying, this is how the character is happy. This is how the character is angry. So switch the process in your mind in terms of going, what does a smile look like with this character's facial anatomy and proportions? Instead go, what is this character feeling? Like maybe they're smiling, but they lost their father, so they can never truly be excited in the moment. They're going through something intense, Like this bottom one, this determined one, is good. But what if there was a slight air of anxiety? It's the difference between just a hair change in the angle of the eyebrows, just a hair change, would add just a little bit of, it would still have the same urgency, but just a little bit of, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm worried about what's going to happen. That stuff, that's what makes you like a pro. Like this, they're still determined, but they're not 100% sure of themselves, So that kind of stuff, or like, this one as well. So it's like those little minute differences, they add up to what this character is. Like like character design, so hard, but that is what it is. You really need to understand that stuff. So yeah, proportions of the dragon, qualities of the dragon, and then if you want to take it to the next step, refining some of this story stuff to like a really high level. And there's a couple more. Again, really impressed everybody. Wow, so cool. Oh, nice. So Ryan's been here the whole time in the chat. So we get to look at their work now, which is so sick. I love this, dude. I love your work, Ryan. So much fun. So we have a fun lore page here. Legibility is somewhat dubious for me personally, but I love the style of it. Like I love how you approached this process of going through the information and writing notes and all of that stuff. So you wrote the scouting mission, you got all the stuff, you know what I mean? And you're kind of figuring it out. Rumors from the village, something about a little sound here. Apparently some kind of some kid found a sacred plant in the forest and reserved for the elders. Ooh, interesting, for the research required. Ooh, so there's like missing information. Best guess of the creature's silhouette from the mind. Ooh, nice. I love the kind of like very loose scrawled thing, like you're researching, like you're a little research scout. Scrape the sheet from the locals. Hope they don't mind. Haha. So it's like you found the piece of paper. That's cool. Ran out of space. Oops. This is classic. Notable features. Seamless functionality. So there's a leaf bulb. So there's some kind of plant. Same colored glow of the creature. Rider's eyes. Creature approximately long. Rider approximately. Oh, interesting. So we got some proportions. 8 feet tall rider. That's crazy. Whoa. So here's the things here. So we've got the page with some text. The creature seems to be one with the rider. During all my observations, I could never quite tell who was in control. The catalyst to this uncanny duet seems to be some kind of opalescent herb. It was unfortunately only able to sneak a quick glimpse before an overwhelming screech interrupted my studies. I love that. Great. This is so cool. I love that. So cool. So I love all of these silhouettes. These are really fun. I like that you presented a few ideas, like, and they're all really interesting, going very silhouette forward, very shape forward. And again, really being experimental with what you think a dragon is and messing around with material, presentation, silhouette, doing all the things we want to see. The little riders on top, these little kind of cute little guys. I don't think I have any notes for this other than the presentation of like this is so fun. If there was some kind of added or linked presentation here with like some of the handwriting stuff or with some of the presentation stuff, like you could sort of make it look like you like painted these with like gouache on a page or something, just by like having the outline silhouettes be like a little bit more kind of like painterly or scratchy or something. But I like the reflections and I like the look of this, so I'm not going to actually give that as hard advice. I think you did a great job. And here we have a great scenic scene here where we've got the creature down below, or the kind of character talking with the dragon creature. So we've got the sense of scale. It's like really big and in the foreground here, and the character back here is, talking to it, maybe seeing it, but he doesn't see you yet. I love this. This is really fun. Yeah, great. I love it. Great work, Ryan. Very cool. Here is one also has been hanging out in the chat. Maya, really good work here. I love this one. So this one I've already given you some feedback on, be in just like personal mentorship and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go too heavy into review here. But the main things I think that would help this image is having a clear sense of light and shadow. So for instance, if we were going to do the cardinal sin of, having a like multiply layer and all of that stuff, I think that it would be helpful if, there was some larger shadow shapes that were like the lighting was maybe a bit more defined. So I know you and I have spoken a lot about the idea of each element kind of having a range of two values, like an object in shadow and an object within being lit by the environment, which is great. But I think another thing to also keep in mind is that if you have environments where there's like lots of kind of cast shadows or big shapes, you can create a really strong sense of space and depth if you, let's say, like put this character just like in shadow, right? So if you kind of define this out, that this was kind of sort of casting a shadow, the underside here was casting a shadow, and this whole thing down here wasn't being hit with direct sunlight. Like if this character was sort of being hit with some kind of shadow, so like the face here, we can just do neutral, I guess. Here, we'll do this. Yeah, even this is like almost bordering too much. But this kind of idea of like coming in and sort of saying like, these are the big light shapes that are important, and like defining this whole thing, underneath the wing here. These elements that like frame the design, it can just add a really nice sense of depth. And you're doing it, I can see you're doing some stuff there, sort of like you're getting almost there. But paying a bit more close attention to the forms, I think would allow you to have some more convincing blockings, right? Because something like this, like if the light's coming from the top, then something like this side wouldn't actually be in shadow, And something like this, yeah, again, I can see you sort of, you have it in shadow here, but I think that you could push it maybe just a little bit more, potentially. Not too much more, though. So that at a distance, when you're looking at this from a distance, and again, definitely doesn't have to be this dark. But having a bit more contrast, it just kind of adds a bit more sense of form and atmosphere to the illustration, where it's potentially a bit more clear what some of the forms are doing. You've got just a bit more indications of like where to look, areas of contrast, and like framing stuff. Whereas before it's like, it's great, but it's the difference between like a very kind of cartoony illustration where it's like very kind of high key and very pastel colors and having a sense of like real kind of depth and like real sense of space and sense of lighting and all that stuff, which is like you kind of have a very storybook style. We've talked about this a lot. um, but if you want to get that sense of depth, we can kind of jump in on this area and do this kind of thing. The other thing I think is that just certain levels of detail. Potentially all these little marks with the thick black lines and all this stuff, the level of detail is potentially just a little bit too high, as well as the yellow is a little bit bright against the dark background because, again, if it's in shadow, it would be like a little bit of a darker yellow. So the gold would be a bit darker, it wouldn't be that bright necessarily. Again, like I would let you do a lot of those edits and all that stuff. But overall, I love the look, I love the vibe, I love the moment they're sharing. They have a really special moment here, so that really stands out as a very strong element. So great work, awesome job, really cool. Yeah, and just like consider some of that stuff. And then for the structural information, I think for the most part, I love how you're thinking about the dragon, the anatomy, the texture, all of that stuff. But I think that the tips of the wings, like again, just looking at bat wings, looking at some other examples, you could have a bit more clarity in your information up here because it's kind of going into just sort of like lines into a shape, which is it's you're losing me a little bit with the believability with some of that stuff. So that I would examine. Also, I would lighten your lines for the wings. I would definitely lighten those lines. Or not for the wings, for the scales. Like I don't think they need to be that bright. I'll just like with like 50% opacity, I would just knock them back a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to, again, focus on the characters a little bit more. So yeah, just be wary of how dark your lines are, especially for something so busy like all these scales, because it can very quickly just take over the image and you can lose all your focus. So here you can even see like how much more elegant those values are, but I do like the crispy shadows of the scales. So yeah, maybe, but I do think this is a better read. Let's see. Yeah, it just has like a bit of a stronger read and it just kind of feels a little bit better, I think. But what you can do is go back in and define out certain shadows here and there that you want to keep and that you like, like certain areas here, and do some little drop shadow stuff or have more consistent shapes for some of it. This is when it gets a little, meticulous and time consuming and all that stuff, but it's fun to do that if you want to kind of define out some of those shapes. Yeah, great work, Maya. I love this piece. And then we already talked about atmospheric perspective and just kind of knocking this back a little bit, give it a better sense of dimension. Okay. And last but not least, from Tulip, we got another dragon creature. So this one, I like the really deep, like tonal range and the really bright pastels. Like it has a very I don't know what's the word, like it reminds me of like those shows where you're in like a Halloween high school kind of vibe where it's like really thematic. It has that ghostly feeling. The high vibrancy is really fun. So we have some information here. The copper bugback dragon. So we have some information on this dragon where it's like it's a bug, so it has bug wings. That's really fun. Has a coiled structure for the body. And then we have a character here who's like a female character who is a fairy. I have no idea what age they are. Interviews with other fae report. There's a empathetic bond. Interesting. Interesting. So there's like emotional stuff going on here. So there's this kind of like emotional element happening. Oh, and it looks like there's some kind of like scale. Like it's actually a smaller creature, like potentially like a smaller little dragon. And this is kind of like a normal sized character. That's kind of interesting. Cool. Oh, and their umbrella does magic. So it's like a magical fairy creature. So they're like escaping through the trees. Oh, I see. So it is a big dragon. They're riding on the big dragon. During a fire, cause unknown. Dragon's tail spirals in flight and at rest. Interesting. So then the king, purple jewel in the crown, only consistency, vengeful. Vengeful ruler of little tree. Interesting. So there's like an antagonist here who's got some satyr armies. Yeah, satyr enemies hunting in groups. Interesting. So they're like hunting a flightless avian. I like this. This is really appealing. I like the silhouettes. The silhouettes are really look really good. This drawing is really good. I like these a lot actually. So overall, what I would do for this one is have a little bit of consistency with how you're describing material. So down here at the bottom, as like the form turns and you have some highlights on the curved form, this is actually looking pretty good. And then I think I would want this same level of description as what's happening up here. Like up here, it gets a little messy in terms of you're not stacking the highlighting values properly like you are here. Like here, it gets really busy. Where it looks more just like a regular pattern and not like a texture or like a material thing. The other thing is, I think you need some consistency in the ratio of detail that you're using. So it's very fuzzy and blurry in a lot of these areas, which would be fine if the whole thing was like that. But then I think you're probably falling victim to the symptom of like zooming in really far and like rendering all these tiny details out in high contrast. But what that ends up doing is just like this all looks okay, but then when you zoom out, it makes the rest of this stuff feel unfinished. So you need to have some consistency of how you're depicting material and how you're rendering. So there are ideas like brush economy, where you're thinking about using the same size brush for a lot of different details and having like the same sort of ratio of detail. And I would say a similar thing about the fairy down here, where again, it's like you have this fairy figure, but I have to zoom in a lot to see all these details you painted in. You painted in so many details, but when I'm fully zoomed out and I'm like looking at the page, they're not really legible. So if you're doing a character this small on a page, I don't think it would be as useful to render at this level. Like it's a bit much, you know what I mean? So I'm just gonna really quickly check something. I just realized I've been streaming for about like I think an hour and a half longer than I thought. I'm pretty sure. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. So that's what I would say about this piece. But I think, honestly, I love the concept. I love the idea of like a fairy living in a forest. The other thing is, I'm not sure the costume is very forest core. Like, I wouldn't guess that the fairy with the umbrella is like in the forest or like in this kind of environment. So I think like, but that doesn't mean it can't be. Like, you know, that's just like a visual thing of like, oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that. That doesn't mean it's like unsuccessful or impossible, but just something to consider. But yeah, I think that examine how you're rendering things and like what level of detail you actually want certain things to be. So I would look at artists that you really admire and look at how they tackle subjects that are kind of small on the page. Look at how much detail they're doing, how they're rendering things, how they're approaching this stuff, because this level of detail on something this small is like very uncommon. And typically you don't really see that as much in like the more kind of professional work. So yeah, great work, Tulip. I really love the idea here. The bug wing is really fun. And yeah, I like the designs. The page is cool. So yeah, overall, guys, wow, really impressed with everybody's work. I'm just like so stoked that everyone participated in the Dragon Design Jam. So we're gonna have another one of these soon. Right now, we're wrapping up a world building project in this server, so that you can watch the last stream if you want to take a look at that. But yeah, really impressed with all these submissions. I think everyone did really fun work, like really great approaches to this stuff, guys. Good stuff. Yeah, very impressed. Okay, cool, cool. All right, guys. Well, this has been so much fun. Oh my gosh, we've really done a lot, to be honest. We've done a whole bunch. Again, like let's look back over at some of the drawings we've done so far. Yeah, wow, we really did a lot. This guy's like done basically. That's crazy. Just some stuff at the bottom we gotta sort out a little bit, but overall, this thing looks pretty good, right? Hope you guys learned something. That's always my goal. So I really hope you guys actually did learn something. That would be really cool. And yeah, I'll be back with another stream relatively soon. I got to finish up some client work before I get back on the horse with streaming. But this one was kind of to go over some of those dragon assignments, to show you guys this process, and to promote the class. So I'm really excited to see a lot of you guys in the upcoming dragon design workshop that's going to be happening in July, from July 11th to the 20th. I tried to price it as affordable as possible, and I'm just really excited to see you all there, man. It's going to be a really dense and high quality level of information for those lectures and the assignments and stuff. So super excited to see you guys there for sure. let's do a once over on the chat so we can read and we'll see. Oh yeah, very cool. Yeah, nice. No, don't apologize for the handwriting, Ryan. It honestly was great. I loved it. It was like a cool, it was cool. It worked. Awesome. Of course, Maya, happy to critique. Ryan said, "Yippee." Yeah, wow, really great work, everybody. We've streamed for a bit longer than I thought. My goodness. Oh, 4.5 hours? Oh dear. Or no, we've been going for 3.5, right? Or almost 4 hours. That's crazy. Crazy. Okay. Well, we're gonna start to sign off, guys. Thank you so much for hopping in and joining. I've been Gabriel. I've been really happy to be here with you guys. Really happy to be talking about dragons and doing all this fun stuff. So I will see you all soon, I assume. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your, gosh, what is it? Rest of your week? Yeah, Thursday. Yeah, I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend overall. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. So